Admit you have no definitive evidence for your claims. There's no proof positive evidence. That's why the jury's still out. That's why there's debate right now.
Jury is nowhere, mate.
If it was crystal clear, like the trees
there
exist,
is no jury.
You know, then we would be talking about it. Do you hear us talking about do trees exist? No.
Your claim is
some definitive evidence.
Percentage. Your claim is that you're being lied to about the shape of the Earth.
Is that his claim?
The burden of proof's on you.
Of course it is.
Can he agree or disagree?
Is it my claim that we're being lied to?
I never heard you.
Are you saying it isn't? Are you saying that isn't your claim?
No,
why are you asking for a burden
the
of
claim
proof?
that the Earth, that the heliocentric model exists, that it's real, has not been proven. I'm rejecting
for that.
I can claim that the government.
Hold on, you're rejecting it. So
I'm rejecting the claim because it doesn't have definitive evidence. Claims without evidence are rejected without evidence.
I'm going to finish my sentence before you jump
why does anybody have a burden to you? That's what
you have
I
a
don't
burden
get.
to everyone. When you make a claim, to be intellectually honest, you have a burden with that claim. So whoever contends it.
And the people can present their evidence for the claim quite easily. So what's the problem?
There's no definitive evidence. That's the point.
Well, I don't think that you have definitive evidence for anything. I think that's just a word you.
Yeah, because you're deluded. Next.
Can we let Pure go?
Can you give me an example of something external to yourself that you have definitive evidence of?
Define external to myself.
So not something something about reality that doesn't involve you.
Okay, so something that I haven't observed? Does it involve me if I observe it?
That's the point.
Okay, hey, I could tap in here.
So it's a dumb question. Thank you. Next.
No, hold on. Okay. No, don't just avoid the fucking question.
I'm asking you, is it external to me if I observe it? If I'm not affecting it, but I'm observing it?
Yes.
Okay, so obviously everything is external to me then.
Yes.
So what's your point?
Because before when someone went in this direction, you said, "Oh, I know I'm breathing. I know I'm talking."
Yeah, it doesn't have to be something that I'm affecting.
Okay, percentage. Tell them you know the church is around the corner or something.
Shut up. Shut up. Those things are not external to yourself. They're internal things about yourself. So I'm talking something external to yourself, some fact about reality, some notion about reality that you have definitive evidence for.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff. Are you contending any of it?
Name one.
Tell them what's in your sock drawer, percent. Tell them what's in your sock drawer.
So I got this little air bubble wrap right here in front of me. I'm not affecting it right now. I'm just observing it. Does that count as being external to me?
Evidence for it. Would it be fair to say something he hasn't experienced himself?
Dude, look at this. Now he's going to say, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know what your point is, Jem. I could take a picture of it. I could show you definitive evidence of it.
My point is, I'll tell you what my point is. There is no such thing as definitive evidence. Present your definitive evidence for this bubble wrap then.
So if I live streamed it, see, he's trying to make me jump through hoops and stuff.
These videos of Superman, I don't accept video.
So if I live streamed it,
how do I know you haven't recorded the video previously?
Why doesn't Percentage invite you over to his house and you can touch it?
Do you want to touch it? Do you want me to invite you over so you can touch it?
You guys could have a bubble.
Are we still talking about bubble wrap right now?
Well, that would be that makes my point for me, Jeremy. What percentage then? If that's the standard we're going through with, Percentage is now demanding that anything that's presented to him is delivered personally to him at his house.
No, that's not. I just said I could do a live, like I could live stream, record it, for instance.
And how would that?
I could also record myself talking to you in the same video.
Okay, so are we agreed that a live stream video is definitive then?
If it has, let's say it has multiple views and it's credible in the fact that you can hear yourself speaking in that live stream. It's uncut, raw footage.
You're walking on the edge, You're living on the edge.
You have multiple views and be uncut.
You're living on the edge.
Let's say I had two devices,
you're
multiple views.
Hold on, let me just.
And they were live, and you could hear his voice and everything.
Hang on.
Now what kind of weasel are you going to try getting out of?
Well, you're weaseling, aren't you?
I'm not weaseling at all. I'm saying you can know things definitively. Because credible video.
Because what you first said was I can live stream it, And then when you realize that that wasn't really going to work for you, you started adding things to it. Like, it has to have multiple views. I don't know why that was affected. Now you've added a second.
To be fair,
camera.
I said live stream, and I was still answering. I was going to say with me and like talking during the live stream with you and stuff, but then it got cut off.
Yeah,
but
the live stream inherently means you.
Yeah, the live stream is raw.
You're the one that said that's not going to work. Not percentage.
We're holding him to his standard.
So a live stream where a person in the live stream interacts with another person, then that is definitive.
No, it interacts with the person that's contending it, just to show that it is live, in fact, and that it's not an edited video, and that it's raw footage.
Can we return to my question and get away from this hypothetical of what you could produce and tell me something that you know about the world that you have definitive evidence for?
Everything about the world that I observe.
So show me some definitive evidence for one of these
That's
things.
what empiricism is. Everything that you observe and can verify is definitive.
So show me. Yeah, but this isn't about what you can verify.
I said you.
Is it?
What you can observe and verify is definitive as well.
Hold on, listen. Stop talking. This isn't about what you can verify. This isn't about what I can verify. It's what you can present to me that is definitive.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, present something.
I just said anything.
What?
Okay, so if you can't be with me in person, then I would have to have a video with multiple angles and live uncut footage.
What if percentage brings the bubble wrap to you, Jem? What if he brings the bubble wrap right to your front door and you guys pop some bubbles?
Again, this doesn't help you, Jeremy. If you say these things, I'm not saying that you cannot raise this standard to some point where it would just be absurd for someone to reject the evidence.
You did say nothing is definitive.
Of course you can do that. No, I'm not saying that would be definitive. I said where it would be absurd for someone to reject the evidence. Okay, very careful not to say.
You started this by saying nothing's definitive.
Listen, let me make a fucking point without interrupting me.
Go ahead, man. Don't get mad.
Well, because you do it constantly, dude. I cannot finish a single thought because you are badgering me. Shut the fuck up. My point is, Jeremy, that if he has to go to these absurd lengths to produce definitive evidence, why is he sat here demanding definitive evidence? Because
the credible video is absurd.
Listen, shut up! The only thing he will accept so far, according to you, is if we actually deliver it to his house personally. So how is it honest for him to sit there asking for something that he won't accept unless it's personally delivered to his house? That's my point. There is no definitive
I would
evidence.
have to think. Okay, I got
it's some stupid qualification that he's invented so he can just reject all evidence out of hand by saying it's not definitive. There is no such thing.
Relax, Jem. Let me explain. Now, I don't know. Let's pretend percent's never been to China, right?
We'll let Jeremy explain.
And come on,
Jeremy.
Let's pretend percent's never been to China, right? So he doesn't know or not. But now he gets eyewitness testimony from millions and billions of people that live there, people that went there to visit, all kinds of stuff from China, pictures, videos, millions of people's eyewitness testimony that they've been there. It's real.
You're explaining a conspiracy theory. Keep going.
Yeah, you are.
That's not That's not really questionable at that point whether China exists or
not. No, it's actually questionable. It is questionable, Jeremy.
I think I can help this too.
You're all in on it, Jeremy. Don't you know that?
It is questionable because flat earthers question. We have already millions of people observing that the sun is not shrinking when it goes to the horizon. And flat earthers contest that kind of evidence by saying, no, that's not real.
Percentage has a globe that says made in China,
what about two celestial poles, Jeremy? You hear that being disputed every day. And that's a really obvious thing that anyone can see. You don't even have to be in the southern hemisphere to see it.
Jem, what's disputed?
Two celestial poles.
Oh. What's that? Yeah, but so what? Okay.
Well, my point is, there's no such thing as definitive evidence. It's just some word. It's just some word that percentage throws in there to reject stuff with.
There's no such thing as definitive evidence. You just said it.
Show me definitive evidence of something. Then go ahead. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear a hypothetical. Show me a piece of evidence that you say is definitive of something that already exists.
I'm gonna show up. Give me your address. I'm gonna show up to your front door with some definitive evidence.
Jeremy, even that won't be enough because you might be, in a simulation, or you might be solipsistic or delusion. It might be a delusion or something like that.
Right. Exactly.
That's why, Jem. Like I knew you were getting at this the whole time. That's why
you have to have
square brackets beyond a reasonable doubt. You've kind of isolated everything. You have your doubts that are unreasonable and absurd and stuff, and you've limited it to the reasonable doubt, and you went beyond that.
Right. So we can really drop the word definitive because that is
it's definitive beyond reasonable doubt. See, I knew you were trying to play these dumb tricks.
I'm not playing a dumb trick. You can't say I need evidence that supports a proposition beyond a reasonable doubt, and I need evidence that is definitive.
They're the same thing.
And say, listen. They are absolutely not the same thing in any way. They are completely different things in every way.
They are the same thing.
Yes, they are.
Because if it's that thing beyond a reasonable doubt, then it can't be anything else.
But
as such, it's definite.
So you just agreed that definitive
it's not beyond a doubt; it's beyond a reasonable doubt.
What you've just done,
by the way, agreed that definitive.
If it's an unreasonable doubt, then it's argumentum ad absurdum.
So tell me how two celestial poles does not meet this requirement of definitive evidence.
Because that's the sky. We don't know what the sky is. We don't know what those things in the sky are.
The only proposition is the celestial poles. That is that the fact that the stars move around a point in the south and a point in the north. We don't have to know what. That we know what the stars are. They're one's called Polaris, one's called Barnard Star, one's called Proxima Centauri. That's what they're called, okay? Those are the names of the stars. That's all we don't need to know anything beyond that. They are identifiable, and we can identify their positions, and we can see that they rotate around a pole, apparently.
Yeah, except we don't know what they are. We don't know how they propagate. Or what medium they're in.
None of those are the question. Like the only question we're considering is two celestial poles. Nothing about the nature of the stars. They're just lights in the sky.
Yeah, what if these lights are they propagate to multiple locations in some weird way? Maybe it's an optical illusion. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, but percentage, that was already written in Jem's question because he said perceptibly. So we are talking about, is there a perception? Does it look like there are two celestial poles? So none of your bullshit about, oh yes, it could be an illusion and it could be some hypothetical scenario where it's somehow randomly made up of lenses or something. You can invoke whatever you will. We have the appearance of two celestial poles, and you cannot contend that, idiot.
We can actually, because you haven't shown that there are actually two celestial poles. We don't know if it's perspective. We don't know how the light is, just maybe it's the refraction of the light or some other stuff.
You just drove yourself into
we don't know what the lights in the sky are.
Yeah, no one is talking about what causes them.
All of that is obfuscation. All of it is obfuscation.
You guys don't have definitive evidence of these two celestial poles. It might be an optical illusion. It might be just like the bending of the thing in perspective.
The optical illusion would be that there is a pole. That there are two poles. That would be the result of the optical illusion. So whether it's the result of an optical illusion or not is irrelevant. The only question that we're considering, as I have to keep repeating, as you desperately try to get out of this corner that you painted yourself into, that there are two celestial poles, and by your standard, this is definitive.
Okay, what if there aren't actually two celestial poles, but the stars just, in terms of our perspective, make it look like the ones far away are like wrapping around something else?
Can you explain how that would happen?
Right. Why would that be? I mean, as you said, for it to be definitive, it has to be shown to be true beyond a reasonable doubt. So
how is claiming that there is
hang on,
you haven't shown that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Still talking. So how is what you've just proposed, this idea that they're wrapping around something due to perspective, how is that a reasonable doubt?
Number one, you haven't proven your claim that there are two celestial poles. I'm saying, we're speculating that it could be something else. It could be how our perspective works. We like the sky dome theory, kind of, where things that are closer to you and will wrap around, and then as they get farther away, they have like the lines go.
All of this is irrelevant. It's all irrelevant nonsense, because what you're describing is the mechanics of the optical illusion that would result in the appearance of two celestial poles, which I am not trying to prove, as you said at the start of that, for some reason. All we're trying to show is that there is evidence that is for two celestial poles that meets your standard of definitive, and you have not been able to show how that is not true.
You're strawmanning. You haven't even shown that these two.
How am I strawmanning you?
Exist.
How? Where in that was the strawman?
Let me explain. Don't interrupt me, because you had a fit that I was doing that to you. So number one, if you're claiming that we observe two celestial poles, and it could be an optical illusion, it could be due to perspective, we don't know why, then I would agree with that. Okay. I never once said we have definitive evidence of two celestial poles. Hold up, because we don't know what the lights in the sky are. We can't go up there to verify them. We have no first-hand, direct information from it, except for seeing lights in the sky. So again, if you are talking about observing it, we're fine with that.
So you're agreeing then that it is observed that there are two celestial poles. Definitively.
I said if we do observe, depending on
not if. No.
What have you?
The proposition is not if. The proposition is there are two celestial poles. This is supported by definitive evidence. Do you agree with that proposition or not?
I reject that proposition.
Okay, why do you reject that proposition?
Because you're saying there are two celestial poles. We don't know that. We don't know if it's an optical illusion.
Yes, we do. Listen. Let me say it for the third time in the vain hope that it sinks in. We are not talking about how there comes to be two celestial poles. None of that is in question. If it's an optical illusion, the result of the optical illusion is two celestial poles. So whether it is or not is irrelevant. The only question we are considering is, are there two celestial poles? Yes. This is supported by definitive evidence that meets your standard of definitive. Is this true or not?
You have one observer seeing both of these celestial poles at the same time.
Requirement.
Yes.
Why would we need that? Why would that isn't a requirement. That wasn't a requirement.
People in the equator see both celestial poles.
Well, it's not a requirement.
Why is that suddenly a requirement?
That we can observe both these celestial poles. I'm saying, to make sure that it's not some sort of perspective thing, show us these two celestial poles for one observer so that we know both exist.
Why?
Because if we can only see one at a time, maybe both don't exist.
Okay. So, just to catch up then, the third definition now of definitive that we're moving on to is that all of the evidence for a proposition has to be experienced by a single person, or it's not
but we're talking about the celestial pole.
Okay, so why have we introduced this new standard? Well, would it be acceptable?
You're trying to get me to agree that we observe two celestial poles. I'm saying, when do we observe two celestial poles?
So
when does any one person observe two celestial poles? You can even bring optics into it and telescopes.
People have done that.
When does one telescope observe two celestial poles?
People have done that from the equator, but regardless of that, we live in a world where we're able to communicate with each other. So, given your previous,
but that doesn't extricate whether it might be a perspective issue.
Given your previous standard, the definitive, it should be acceptable that there are millions of people in the southern hemisphere that can observe a celestial pole, and millions of people in the northern hemisphere that can observe a different northern celestial pole simultaneously.
No, but that doesn't address the perspective issue because those millions of people will have their own million perspectives.
God, really?
We're trying to
again, if it's perspective, it's irrelevant. Are they observing
there are two celestial poles?
You see, you're just so fucking desperate. You just cannot be honest, can you?
Can you be honest and say we can observe two celestial poles from multiple positions? Maybe
multiple positions now.
Yeah, we can observe two celestial poles from multiple positions.
So now it's this. In order for something to be true, it has to be observed by a single observer from multiple places. Else, it's not definitive.
If you're claiming there are two celestial poles, you should be able to see those two celestial poles, right? To make sure it's not perspective.
Yeah, and that can be done from the equator.
Okay, show us
now you're saying, because you heard me say equator last time, now you're saying just the equator isn't going to be good enough. It's going to need
show us someone on the equator seeing both celestial poles. Go ahead.
That's absolutely not what I'm required to do in any way.
You said we can see it from the equator. That's a positive claim.
No, percentage. This is not about.
That's what I thought.
Listen, well, can someone post one of those star trail images from the equator, please?
Yeah, you'll see it bending.
Because Knobhead here is pretending that somehow that can't be seen.
Yeah, I guarantee you won't see both like
how did
Polaris
this
and Alpha Centauri or whatever, both celestial poles. You'll see the star lines bending, but you won't see two celestial poles. So it doesn't negate the perspective argument.
What you'll see is the stars going around a celestial point, which the star is called Sigma Octantis, and then Polaris.
So you'll see
again, though, why is it required that one person sees them at the same time?
Then we'll
listen!
Wow.
Well, why can't you shut the fuck up and just let me finish one sentence, please? Why? Why is it required for a single person to see both poles when millions of people in the southern hemisphere could see it and millions of people in the northern hemisphere could see the northern pole at the same time? All that was required in your original definition of definitive was that this could be observed by lots of people. That's all that was required, right?
The answer is to negate perspective. Perspective depends on the position. Okay, so if you're doing it from one position, you're negating the perspective argument.
Does perspective
that's interesting.
make there be two celestial poles? How does that happen?
So if by one perspective you can see both celestial poles, like one position, you can see both celestial poles, that means that the perspective thing isn't in play, right?
Perspective is required, and your definition of definitive.
By the way, even if it's perspective, that was again written in Jem's question. There is an appearance of two celestial poles. Now you arriving from perspective apparently, but it again was written in the question, and that's what. So you don't understand what the bloody question is, or you're deliberately not understand.
Yeah.
I understood it. I answered. The reason you would want to do it from one position
didn't understand. If you understood it, why didn't you answer it correctly?
I did answer.
You answered
it. To limit the perspective argument.
Again,
so you said
perspective argument. There is no perspective. Sorry, Laurie. Go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah, Kantich, you said that we cannot definitively prove that there is the appearance of two celestial poles because it could be perspective, but perspective is written inside the argument, so you cannot say that. You moron.
It is. We can say that because he didn't say it gives the observation, it's observed as having two celestial. He said it is two celestial. So we need to confirm that it actually is and isn't an optical illusion. If it's an optical illusion, then it would just be observed, but it wouldn't actually be. Right?
For the 8th time, it wouldn't matter if it's an optical illusion. The result of the optical illusion is that we have two celestial poles.
No, that we observe two celestial poles, not that we have two celestial poles.
You've fucked yourself up because listen. You demanded definitive evidence. I pointed out to you that there was no such thing as definitive evidence. you then change from definitive evidence to evidence where that supports a proposition beyond a reasonable doubt. Once you said that, you knew you were screwed on two celestial poles, because the evidence is beyond a reasonable doubt that there are two celestial poles. So now you're trying to. So now you're trying to make it about, oh, well, maybe they aren't actually poles, but maybe it's a big sky projector, or maybe it's the result of perspective or an optical illusion.
Yeah,
none of that matters. None of that matters.
Your words carefully.
None of that matters. The result is two celestial poles, and that's the only issue.
No, that's not two celestial poles.
Okay.
It's observing two celestial poles. If I have diplopia, if I have double vision, and I'm seeing two things, right? And it's an optical illusion. Are there two things? No, I'm just observing two things. There's a fucking difference, and I'm telling you to be cognizant of that. Stop saying there are two celestial poles. Say we're observing two celestial poles.
But that's not a reasonable doubt. It's not a reasonable doubt that millions of people are all just seeing double, and the double is totally different.
That was an analogy.
From the original
analogy. The point is, there's a difference between what is perceived and what actually is. So if you're saying they actually are two celestial poles, you can't say that unless you've already excluded perspective. And
the only issue is what's perceived. That's the only thing we're talking about.
Okay, so stop saying there is two celestial poles.
You keep trying to make it about something else, but the only issue is what's perceived.
You keep on saying there are two celestial poles. I'm telling you,
because that's what's perceived.
Say we observe two celestial poles.
That's what we perceived.
Yeah, so we perceive two celestial poles. Don't say there are. And I'm asking you to show us where we see them both together.
If I perceive
so that we know
that
there actually are two.
If I perceive a mountain, I say there's a mountain. I don't say, oh, I see a mountain. It might not actually be a mountain. I say there is a mountain.
Projected into the sky, you would be wrong.
I would, yes, but
you're wrong.
I don't see mountains projected into the sky, moron, do I? What are you talking about?
Sometimes you do. They're mirrored, and someone could project it into the sky.
Jesus fucking Christ!
That's just desperation. Reeks of desperation.
Yep. What do you mean?
It really is, isn't it?
Where is
just percentage is absolutely terrified.
Listen, I'm gonna steel man
there
your
are
argument,
two celestial poles, and this is definitive. He's
terrified. I'm gonna steel man your argument, Jen. I'm gonna make it better. Okay, let's say that you're not trying to make it weird about whether whether it actually are two celestial poles or whether they're observed. Let's just say we observe two celestial poles, and let's say that we can observe them from the same position. Which you guys haven't shown me evidence that they actually can do that. But
yes, you have.
let's say that we can observe them from the same position, so we know there are two things in the sky that we observe, right?
Liar. Good point.
Now at this point, we still don't know what's in the sky. Well, at this point, we could still say maybe there's these two things going, and they're just kind of going in different directions. One's going clockwise, one's going counterclockwise, and they're meeting in the middle where the star lines are straight. We still don't know.
Mm-hmm. You can say you don't know. We know. So fuck off with that shit.
But what you've just described is how you know there are two celestial poles. You've just given a description of you knowing there are there being two celestial poles. Now you're going on to consider other questions.
Yeah, I told you. I'm steel manning your argument.
Around why there might be two celestial poles. However, they were not my questions. But can we get back to you producing some definitive evidence for something that exists in reality?
I've already addressed this. I knew where you were going with it, and I've already said beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why you would take, for instance, if I can't show you in person, then I would, you would have credible video, multiple angles, uncut footage, live stream, or something like that.
Can you show me anything?
Make it as credible as possible
in reality?
To limit the doubt. So
can you show me anything in reality that you have definitive evidence for? Go ahead.
You in person or over Discord?
So are we back to it must be shown in person requirement?
No, because obviously it would be easier in person. It would be more definitive in person. But if we can't do it in person, then I would again.
So there are degrees. So there are degrees of definitive, are there?
Of course there are.
Right. Well, I thought definitive was definitive, and
No,
either
there's doubts,
something
right? It's beyond
either
reasonable
something
doubt.
is definitive or it's not definitive. It can't be
No,
nearly
let's
definitive.
rephrase. It's not degrees of definitive. It's degrees of doubt associated with it. So the reasonable doubt with seeing it in person is a lot less, right?
Okay. Okay. So go ahead. What have you got?
Yeah, so anything in person. If it's not in person, again, I'd have to relegate to like, you know, the live stream multiple angle videos.
Okay, so what have you got live stream multiple angle videos of that you believe to be true in reality?
Nothing.
So do we conclude from this one of two things?
Are you asking videos that I've made, right?
Either, listen. Either.
Are you asking videos that I've made?
Either you no.
Okay, well there are videos that exist that are, you know, multiple live stream.
Okay, so
angles.
what thing do you know to be true in reality that you have multiple angle live stream videos of?
All right, so there was this high altitude balloon launch that was done by Rob Skiba and some other person, and they had like 2 different cameras, and they had like another third camera while they're doing the entire thing, while they were like, you know, getting the high altitude balloon set up.
So what about external or flat Earth stuff? Just general stuff that you know to be true in reality. What things?
I haven't looked into many other things other than flat Earth stuff because I don't contend much other things.
Because it seems to me we can conclude one of two things from this. Either you know almost fuck all about anything because you don't have definitive evidence of it, which is now apparently multiple camera angle videos that you require to believe a proposition to be true. So either you don't know anything, either you don't know anything, or you're lying about what your standard of definitive evidence, and you actually accept things to be true with a totally different standard than the one you're pretending is required.
Okay, that's a false dichotomy, because obviously I wouldn't hold it to those standards. I wouldn't check the burden of proof unless I contended it in the first place, right? There's a lot of things that I don't contend that I see in person that I know. So if you're trying to discount everything that I know in person that I've experienced directly,
what about extraordinary claims? What about extraordinary? Is okay to have like multiple camera angles?
That's a good point too.
If David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear, would you just believe it with one camera angle?
That's a good point.
Or would you
extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
No, I don't think
let's be honest here, guys.
I think claims require evidence.
I find what Bogandit said there to be quite interesting. What he said is there are things, obviously, that sometimes I contest, but obviously there are some things that I don't doubt.
Right.
And those things that I don't doubt, I know. So what he knows and what he doesn't know is just based on his personal, I don't doubt that. Santa, I don't doubt Santa, therefore it's something I know beyond a reasonable doubt because I didn't doubt it. Oh, that's nice.
Isn't that the common sentiment in this server, though? Your own personal justifiable. I mean, it's like whatever.
No, it's not.
I thought that's what it was. Tell us more about it.
Not. No, not at all.
What is it supposed to be again, Jim Panda?
We use evidence and, you know, actual fucking shit, and you can't just come with this blabber that Pocantage has been doing for the last hour now.
Listen, guys, if you haven't seen it to a point where it's like verifiable, to where you can actually you experience it in person or some other way,
word of qualification.
You would need a higher standard of evidence to believe
it's got to be verifiable now. What the fuck does that mean?
Like, do you guys honestly think you know that this happened and that happened, that, you know, that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, that dinosaurs? You don't know any of this stuff in reality.
Well, I would argue that I don't know. You actually exist. I didn't see you pop out of your mother's
the goal of flat Earth to not know things. To be,
if you didn't experience it in person, there's a higher kind of standard you have to hold to it, to know it.
To reach enlightenment through ignorance. The fewer things you know, the better flat earther you are.
See, that's another straw man. I don't know why you ad homing like that.
Because you're just telling us.
I'm telling you, you can know a great many things.
You're
using
just
your own discernment, your own experience, your own senses.
I'm answering your question.
I didn't ask you a question.
Yes, you did.
No, I said you are straw manning. You're ad homing. I didn't ask you why are you doing this, or I'm
gonna fucking tell you, and I'm gonna mute you so I can fucking finish the thought. You're telling us that we don't know stuff. that we don't know about the dinosaurs, that we don't know all these things. And like I say, that is the goal of Flat Earth. That's what you're all saying. That's what Oakley sits there saying all day. Nobody knows anything. It's all up for grabs. And that is the goal of Flat Earth.
No, that's not the goal of Flat Earth.
So
that's not the goal of those people that are telling you that. The goal of those people are
Jeff.
telling you to be cognizant of what you know and don't know and be intellectually honest.
Yes.
If you do not actually have definitive evidence for something, you do not truly know it.
Yeah,
so it's better to say you don't know instead of to jump to a conclusion and say you do know without actual evidence.
And as we just saw, a perfect display of your intellectual dishonesty, where you were asked what was required for definitive, and when you were presented with something which met your standard of definitive, you just kept obfuscating the point, and then ultimately change your definition of what was definitive 3 times. So that's the point, isn't it? That's the.
I never changed the definition of definitive. I always said definitive beyond a reasonable doubt. Obviously, in person, it's easier to discern.
I'm still talking. That's the intellectual honesty that we see.
Yeah, I am more intellectually honest than you.
And flipping around as you know that you've got to avoid at all costs saying that we can see 2 celestial poles when this isn't in any doubt. There is no reasonable doubt to this proposition whatsoever. None at all. No sane human being could possibly present a reasonable doubt that there are 2 celestial poles. It's ridiculous to pretend that this is something we don't know to be true.
Do you have the proof for your claim where you can see it from the equator? You can see both celestial poles from the equator?
Percentage.
You don't even need to be at the equator. The point is, we can see stars rotating around a central point. You don't even have to be able to see the central point to see that that's happening. You can see it from North America.
Yeah, but you can't see the actual poles.
No, but what does that matter?
It does matter because we need to see that's actually going around in a circle there.
No percentage. Again, you were happy if millions of people had witnessed this and could give an account of it, and there were photographs of it and multiple videos of it. You were happy with that, and that's the case for the southern celestial pole and for the northern celestial pole. Why is it required to have them both seen by a single observer? Why is that? And how is that a reasonable standard for anything?
That's required to extricate it from being a perspective issue.
No, it's not. Again,
yes,
that would be irrelevant. Why are we going around in this circle?
Look, why are you calling him dishonest? He's giving you percentage. Could it be a globe? Is it possible?
Because, Don, let me explain it to you.
Okay, there, boom, Jim, he gave you what you want. He said it's possible. He's being honest.
Let me answer your question in full, Don.
No, he's lying. He's just making shit
just
up.
relax, man.
He's being profoundly intellectually dishonest.
If you say so.
Intellectually dishonest as a person could possibly be. Don't tell me he's being honest.
Okay, Jam. Fuck, I forgot your name, man. Don. The answer is yes, it is possible if all of the unprovable and unfalsifiable claims that they make about the globe were true.
Or if they just mess it up
where he's
for you or whatever, right? But at least you're saying it could be true. Like, that's why it feels like he's so mad at you. Like, you're saying it's not even possible.
If they went out into space and got far enough to see the globe, which they say it's not possible, they can't do it yet or whatever, they can't get that far or what have you, then it would be true. For instance, if they showed that refraction, if they had like this big ass vacuum chamber. Hold up, Jem, man. I know you're unraveling.
His feelings are irrelevant to you, Jem?
Because it's just greater and greater obfuscation.
It's his feelings, and you're telling him they're not honest or even says them.
Don! The question on the table is, listen carefully, are there 2 celestial poles? That's it! Not how are the 2 celestial poles?
Okay.
Not are the celestial poles the result of bananas at mountains? Are there 2 celestial poles? Is this proposition supported by definitive evidence? It is. There is no reasonable doubt that you can cast on this proposition whatsoever. None. Go ahead, try.
I'm going to finish answering Don's question now. So the other thing that they could do,
it's pretty incentivizing percentage. I mean,
the other thing they could do, Don, for instance, is if they had like a big ass vacuum chamber where they could see the effects of refraction over long distance to prove that there is a geometric horizon.
Explain to me, Don. Now you're listening to this. How is what he's just said relevant to whether we can see two celestial poles?
It's not. He asked a different question. He asked
not
if
relevant in any way.
Okay, maybe he's in a position where he hasn't been, laid out all the star collection data. I mean, this guy, who knows? Like, is there any parallax? Do we ever see any parallax from the mid and back level stars?
It meets his standard. It meets his standard for what is definitive evidence. And he
let's be clear. I was answering Don's irrelevant question. He asked me if it was possible to have.
I do appreciate it.
And I answered it.
Absolutely desperate not to.
Okay, but let's answer
the two celestial
answer
pole,
his question now,
the celestial pole things.
Do you have like he wants you to us or whoever the whole everybody?
I already steel man his celestial pole argument. I said if you can see both, within the same location at any given time,
fine, they have it, right?
Then they both exist.
You have what you have.
And even if they both existed, it still wouldn't mean that the Earth's a globe because it could be that they're two counter-rotating celestial poles in the sky.
No,
okay, fine. You have what you have. You have your spinning stars, and
I wasn't trying to establish that the Earth was a globe. All I was trying to establish was this single point, and the fact that he's had to throw in.
I answered it 10 minutes ago.
I just didn't hear him do that.
10 other points now to try and avoid saying yes, there is definitive evidence. There are two celestial poles. He just can't say it. Even though
I answered this 10 minutes ago. I said if you actually have this video from the equator showing both celestial poles.
I haven't got that video. I do not have that video. It doesn't exist, so I haven't. It's no if. I've got that. Now. Still, the evidence supporting two celestial poles easily goes way beyond your requirements for definitive.
What is that evidence?
I don't think so.
What?
Well, it does.
Isn't that evidence the videos of this stuff happening?
You've just added some arbitrary standards to this particular thing so that you can reject it that were not in your original definition of what was required for definitive. And you have still been unable to show me anything that you actually have definitive evidence of. Not a single thing.
It was in my original thing. You weren't listening. I told you if I can rely on my senses and observe it in person, then I wouldn't need anything else, right? It would be definitive. And if that's
however,
if I don't have that, I would require video from multiple angles showing what is being contended.
Again,
you said that you can see it from the equator, so I would want that information.
None of that was in your original thing. You weren't required.
Oh,
wow. You weren't required to personally experience something. That was not a requirement of your original definition of what was definitive.
I told you that the best the least doubt is associated with things that we can verify in person. I said that.
Can I mitigate one time?
Hold on, Don. Hold on. And I pointed out that if that is the case, it's profoundly dishonest for you to sit here demanding people produce definitive evidence of things when your standard for definitive evidence is that they meet with you in person and present the evidence.
Let me go next.
That's a straw man. I said if we couldn't view it in person.
Absolutely not a straw man.
It is because I said if we couldn't view it in person, then we're relegated to multiple angled live stream uncut footage.
So your requirement of in person is irrelevant to definitive, isn't it?
Oh, y'all are so messy.
I already told you.
John, please.
If it's in person, it has a lower doubt associated with it. There's less doubt. If it's not in person, there's more doubt, but it's still beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's definitive evidence.
Can it meet the standard of definitive without a personal meeting?
I've already answered this. Yes, I've answered this like 5 times.
So whether there is or isn't a personal meeting is completely irrelevant.
Not irrelevant because it's still less doubt when it's.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It can be. Doesn't matter if it's less doubt. It can be enough less doubt, i.e., definitive, without a personal meeting. So a personal meeting, a personal experience is not a requirement of definitive.
Yes,
is it?
Correct.
Okay, can I please?
So now
confidence versus 99.99% confidence.
So now this additional requirement that you've added into the two celestial poles is that a single person needs to have this experience. And then how do they come about presenting the evidence to you so that that evidence is then definitive?
Isn't that an exaggeration, though? Isn't that an exaggeration? Why are you being so mean to him when you trying to be? You know what I mean? Like, say it to him nicer, dude. Like, please, because I can't take y'all fighting no more.
Oh.
No, seriously, like y'all could hear each other's position from a little bit more, less exaggerated and gray or whatever, and y'all would be getting along. I promise you.
We won't.
I'm trying, honestly, Don.
We won't.
I've said it like how many times? If I'm not there in person, then
he's
multiple
fibbing
angles,
and he knows
live
it.
video. How's that so hard?
Yeah,
look. We're in a Discord server. Nobody is ever going to come to you personally with evidence. There's no point talking about it. There's no point having it as a standard for anything. There's no point saying, if somebody did this, I would be surer about it. It's never going to happen. Forget about it.
No, I think it's important to mention that you can have greater confidence with your own experience.
It's just more of your obfuscation.
Yeah, but the greater point is somebody has the evidence, okay? And we're not going to ignore it. If someone has it, they're justified in believing that data. And so understand his position from the greater position of that, right? And let's just, you know what I'm saying? Admit what data is there. He's saying if the data's there, and you're like, cool, the data's there. Okay, so cool. He's saying, sure, it's there. Let's move on.
He's not. He's still saying
he is.
Okay.
Listen, how else do you have this data? You have time lapse shots of the stars going around. That's what a video is. Boom, 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 boom. You have what he's saying you have. I mean, all you guys are agreeing. I promise. I'm sorry. I'll get off the mic.
Let's just check.
Please do.
There are two celestial poles. This is supported by definitive evidence. Do you agree with this proposition or not, percentage?
You haven't shown me the definitive evidence yet. Has anyone posted it? The video.
Do you believe they have it, percentage? Do you believe they have it?
Dom, again.
I'll choose not to speculate as to whether or not it exists. If they're making the claim, I'd like to prove.
Again, for the second time, there is no video of the star trails from the equator. My proposition and the evidence comes without that specific arbitrary demand that you threw in at the last minute. The reason being because there are millions of accounts of people seeing the celestial poles, loads of video of it from multiple angles, loads of photos of it, been reported on for many hundreds of years. So that's the evidence that's on the table. That is that definitive of the proposition, definitive evidence to support that proposition. Listen, Don, listen, because here it comes.
Honestly, it's a tough one. The reason it's a tough one is because I'd have to be looking at two different videos. One from in the North Pole showing the stuff is going around, and then in the distance, the star lines are getting a little bit crazy.
It's not hypothetical. You know what evidence is on the table. It's not if I had this and when I get that. The evidence that is currently on the table that does not include a video from a single observer on the equator. It is the proposition that there are two celestial poles supported by definitive evidence or not.
I would say that the proposition that we observe two celestial poles is supported. I wouldn't speak to what those celestial poles are if it's like some optical illusion or something like that, but I would say we observe two celestial poles without that.
Supported by definitive evidence.
Yeah, there would be definitive evidence. You could have
Let me hear you
multiple
say those
videos
words.
observing each one of them.
Let me hear you say the words.
I just said you could have multiple angled videos of like each one of these celestial poles.
We don't have that.
We wouldn't be able to make any claims to what they are.
Given the evidence that's on the table currently, without multiple angled videos, without a video from the equator, without any other hypothetical thing that you can throw in at the last minute to avoid saying what you need to say.
If there are no actual
is the proposition that there are two celestial poles supported by definitive evidence.
If there are no credible videos, then no.
There you go, Don. There you go.
I mean, I can get the awkward position if like he doesn't know how much of society is involved in this types of observations, but like I'm sure you can sense that he understands that this is probably plentiful data, and so he's trying to agree with you. And then when you hit him with the word definitive,
say no. You've just heard
but he
him say
agreed.
no. It's not sufficient data for him to say the proposition is not definitive for him.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that you hear him agree, and then when you add the extra word, right? What's weird?
In his mind, it's reasonable, a reasonable doubt that there might not be two celestial poles. That's what he's telling us.
Because maybe he doesn't personally have enough experience.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say I went and I traveled to the southern hemisphere and saw it, and then it would be definitive evidence for me, right? Or let's say
again, that's a new requirement of definitive evidence that you didn't have before. You're adding in new things.
Wait,
but Don, if he doesn't have enough personal evidence, he should say he doesn't know. If he doesn't have enough personal evidence, he doesn't know.
But that's kind of what I hear.
If I because the word for my point was video, then no, it's not definitive. There should be a video if it's actually a thing.
I was originally annoyed by what percentage says because he throws in this word definitive like it's it's like validate and verify. It's like there's some office you can go to somewhere where you get your validation, your verification, or your definitive certificate for your fact that you want to present. And now that thing is officially definitive, verified, and validated. It's just a word that he can say, oh no, that doesn't meet my qualification for definitive. So I ask him what his qualification for definitive is, and it keeps changing. And now he's saying, again, listen.
And you say that these.
And now
he's not a robot either, right?
And now he's saying, once again, well, if I could do it personally, that would be really definitive, and that's fine.
You're just cherry-picking.
Listen. Of course it would be if he did that, but if that's his requirement or part of his requirement, then it's not honest for him to sit here saying, I want definitive evidence. Because nobody is able to provide him with definitive evidence, are they? They can't give him his personal experience.
Only he can do that. That you interrupted.
Well, the second part was that you needed like loads of people to have experienced it and multiple camera angles and all of that stuff, which you have, and you're now saying it doesn't count.
You have multiple. First of all, you said that there was this video from the equator.
It doesn't matter. That's an arbitrary.
And then you changed it to there aren't any multiple angled, live footage of any of these things. So basically, all I have.
Hold on. I said the opposite to that.
Definitive evidence of something.
I said the opposite to that. I said there are multiple. There are thousands and thousands of pictures of both celestial poles taken from all over the world. So of course there are multiple angles of it. There's video of it. Of course there is.
So there are thousands. You said that those don't exist.
There are thousands and thousands of accounts of these things existing. The stars appear on the fucking Australian flag. The Southern Cross is on the flag. I mean, the idea that I just don't think
you said that I couldn't use those videos. You said that there are no videos. There isn't the video from the equator, and I said for each one. You said there are no videos.
No, I did not.
You were putting him on the table. We know, but you got to respect his awkward position that he's in.
No, I did not say there are no videos. You just made that up. I specifically said there are videos. I said there wasn't a video of a person on the equator. There may well be such a video. I just don't want to get bogged down into that silly bit of the argument, which is just another arbitrary standard.
Yeah, but
I'm still talking. There is just some other arbitrary standard that you've added in at the last minute so that you can say things aren't definitive.
He's not doing that.
He is doing that. It was not part.
Hold on,
I asked him to define what he meant by definitive. He did not say it needs to have a person. There needs to be an account from a person standing on the equator. That was not part of his original definition of definitive. His original definition was the need to be. You need to be able to see it from multiple angles. Need to be photos of it. Lots of people. I can't remember all of the details, but it definitely did not include a person standing on the equator. So he has changed it. Go ahead, percent.
Yeah, you do have a super chat.
Percent. The first time I heard you say the equator thing, I heard you as basically saying, "Do you have gathered data that I can see?" Like, you know what I mean? And then that was maybe like a priority piece you wanted or something. Like, I don't know why they disrespect your greater point.
Let me clear it up because he seems to have misheard me or something. Because first I had asked for the equator footage or whatever. He said it didn't exist, and then I said, fine, I'll take multiple angled videos or whatever of each one, like separately, and he said it doesn't exist.
Right, he didn't want to put that on the table. He wanted you to respect the community.
You misunderstood or misheard me because I did not.
If you run back the chat and listen for Jem, you'll see that that's what I'm saying.
I don't need to. I know for certain I did not say that because I know. I said specifically,
and you said no, that we don't have that.
I said specifically there are multiple photographs and videos of each of the polls. I said that.
You can listen back and you'll see that I said for each one.
He's saying the thing you said. You were like, I'm not putting on the table an equator video. That's exactly what you said.
You misheard me.
Go ahead and listen back then, Jem.
I don't need to listen back. I know what I said. I did not say that. I did not say that. I did not say that. And this is not a process, once again, where I bring things to you. That's not what we're doing. You are bringing things to me.
If you listen back, you'll hear me say, ask after you said no equator one, multiple angle video from each poll, and you said we don't have that.
Well, it doesn't matter because there are thousands of videos.
And that's why
bring him the globe Earth percentage. Bring him the globe Earth like it's never been brought before.
Videos, and you know there are. So stop pretending that you don't.
And a few of them have been posted in chat already.
So I'm going by people's testimony.
Let me read. Don't try this.
Independently verifiable, and it is definitive evidence.
What?
I said if we're including those, if we're including people's videos of observing the two different celestial poles at different times, obviously, because they can't do them both together unless it's the equator. But if we're including those, then it would be independently verifiable evidence. It would be definitive because it's independently verifiable. It's empiric evidence.
Hold on. What precisely are you saying now? The guy? Are we talking about the person on the equator now again?
No, we're not.
Okay. What are we talking about now?
I'm saying if we have unlimited videos. Unlimited.
What does unlimited mean?
From people.
Hold on. What does unlimited mean before we go any further? What do we have? Okay, give me anything that you know to be true that you have unlimited videos.
Wow, don't be pedantic. You know what I mean? I mean, like we have videos we have videos out our ass from different people that have been to that live in the north and south and have seen these star things. We have videos, right? Uncut, credible videos. Then it would be independently verifiable and it would be definitive.
Yes.
So we can agree then, knowing what you know about the world. I'm not going to bother presenting any of these things to you. You can go on what you already know, what you've already experienced as an adult. There are two celestial poles. This is supported by definitive evidence. Do you agree with this proposition or not? This will be the last time I ask, I promise, guys.
If we're being fair, it would be your onus to provide this definitive evidence, to provide these videos to show it.
Look at again. I ruled all of that out, didn't I? I ruled all of that out with my statement. Based on what you know as an adult to be true, without me giving you anything. Based on what you have understood about the world already, based on your entire experience of the world. Irrespective of me, I do not exist in this reality.
Man, I've already answered this like 10 minutes ago. In the same fashion.
Well, you chop and change and you say, well, it would be definitive if we had this. We have, I'm saying, based on what we've got, there are two celestial poles. This is supported by definitive evidence. Is this true or not?
we definitively observe 2 celestial poles.
Yes, we do.
He just can't say it, can he? But I'll leave it there.
Hey, Jim, there's a super chat, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. C4 says, let's pretend percentage is not pretending to be a flat earther. Let's also pretend he is not a whiny little crybaby.
Oh, get money, Jim. He did say earlier, though, it possibly could be a globe. So, I mean,
Thank you very
man.
much for the super chat, C4. Your support, your regular support, is much appreciated. And thank you for being a whiny little crybaby, percentage.
I don't think I whined at all, but
yeah, you kept C4 entertained.
That was called a projection there. It's not like full on crybaby, but it's whiny.
Well, I found the last half hour on this server utterly cringeable.
Sorry, mate. I always ruin it, don't I, these days?
Oh, it wasn't cringe on your part, Jem.
Jem, you're so mad at him. Like, you're mad at, like, you just make it have to be dishonesty. Like,
Because I feel like sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
You're just trying too hard, Jim. You got good views on things. You just need to voice them.
Don's not going to get it because Pocuttage is too much like Don.
Yeah, but Don, don't you get pretty emotional and shouty at times, seemingly for no reason, also.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying, I think that Jem is just wrong in the read, and then he's deep on it because I think, like, okay, maybe percentage, and I don't look. I'm not speaking for you, buddy, but I see that you're trying to be honest. If you're not
arguing was right. He's just agreed with the proposition.
It's tough, man. I just see him just trying to be more dynamic and honest, and like it's just
You're
weird,
fucked
man.
in the head, Don. You're fucked. That's why you see it.
Dynamic. What do you mean by dynamic?
You see, guys, you see, this is why
polarized questions.
this is why this is why we have the scientific method, Jem, because this gives us a method of definitive, absolutely definitive. You see, now obviously, if we were able to test it, I mean, this can be outside of ourselves. If you were able to test it and show us the knowledge that can be replicated by anyone. And validated. You see, that's what we're talking about. And science is the only way, obviously, to do that. Otherwise, like you say, it's just a guess, right?
No, they keep on a position like he's saying he has to be a flat earth. Like, dude, as soon as they step out the box and show you the honesty, you got to admit they being honest. Like, period.
No, I don't. I think they're being profoundly dishonest. I do not think they could be more dishonest, really. I mean,
is dissonance dishonest?
Absolutely, profoundly dishonest in everything that they're doing and saying. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Is my microphone okay? Check. 1 2 1 2. Is it my mic okay?
Check.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. So
It might just be that no one cares, Chemo.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just off the back of what's been said, I think, like I say, the only way to know something is with science, right? I mean, that's how you separate like a religious idea or an idea.
So what does that science look like?
I think it's a good way of knowing things, but I don't think it's the only way.
No, for it to be definitive. We're talking about...
definitive.
I don't really like words like that.
Yeah, but we're talking about when
so
it's
at the moment
it doesn't mean anything, does it? Because according to percent, definitive can mean nearly definitive.
Well, I think
that can't work with our method. You see, Jeb, with our method, you can't have a nearly independent variable. It either is.
That's what.
He's trying to use the word definitive to actually. He's trying to force it to mean absolute. Actually, definitive means it's the definition of the proposition, not absolute.
I think the next question that has to be asked, though, is now that we definitively know that there are 2 celestial poles.
We don't.
Well, we don't.
That's not
we
definitive.
don't know. Now, okay. I thought we had determined that we did know. I'm sorry.
We don't know. We don't know.
You can't say there are. You've got to say you observed that there are.
Yeah, because we can't go up there and actually verify what the lights are.
You don't have to go anywhere.
No, they are there. They are there. It's not, and there's no question whether they're there, whether they're a planet, a star, whatever. There are two celestial poles. There is no arguing that.
We know that. You just deny it. That's the situation.
I think we got him to where he did all my... Well, I don't know whether we did or not, to be honest.
Now, where two celestial poles mean it's a globe.
Yes.
What it means is that it's strong evidence for
Yes, incorrect.
Earth. It's not proof, but it's strong evidence, and it also at the same time completely debunks a flat Earth theory. That's what it does.
Yes, beyond a reasonable doubt.
So
it's
number one,
null proof. It's a falsification of the flat Earth. It's a falsification of the flat Earth. It's an evidence for a globe Earth, and it's complete trashing of the concept of the flat Earth.
Because let me ask you, Jem. Jem, hold on. Let me ask you, Jem. Let me just ask Jem. Let me just ask Jem a question here. So, for example, now, Jem, let's say it was a murder and there was blood somewhere. And the judge is not there, the forensic people, and they haven't seen it directly, the murder or whatever it is. But can they say that this blood is that person's blood definitively?
Not but just by observing it, no.
How then? How can they be definitive? And it's that
Because
person's
it's
blood.
definitive that it's blood. It's definitive that it's blood from a living being or once living being.
No, but they've got the person. They've got the person in custody. They've got the blood.
And that's the blood to the person.
It's a really comparable case.
A little bit falsification, but we can go on.
I think you could test the blood, but I think if you've got the person, maybe you don't need to, right? They might just say, "Yeah, I did it."
No, we want to know if the person was there or not. So
ask him if you've got him.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: Earth is guilty as fuck of being a globe.
Yep.
I think there are. Look, I think it's fair. I think there are. We can set standards for evidence, and we can be. Some things we are going to have a lower standard of evidence for than other things. I accept that to be true, but I think you have to be clear about what your standards are. And I think if you throw around these qualifying words like definitive, validate, verify, as if they mean something, but you don't actually say what they mean. And when you're asked what that means, you chop and change it, and you can't really settle on something that works universally, then I think you've got a problem. I think that requires some self-examination of, why is that the case? Why can't I come up with something?
You have another super chat.
You can say that they don't that we don't know what they mean, or that the meanings are confusing, but they're not. We've been very clear. I've been very clear, at least.
No, they aren't.
Definitive means it can be nothing else. So definitive beyond a reasonable doubt means beyond reasonable doubt it can be nothing else. Verifiable means you can verify it.
You don't define reasonable doubt, and reasonable doubt ends up meaning anything you want it to mean, which means it's arbitrary, which means it doesn't mean anything. This is
means it's unreasonable.
Reasonable doubt would be subjective. Like what your doubt level is subjective.
That makes it so that it's anything you want it to be. Subjective, as we say. That's not a good criteria.
Yeah, but don't even worry
By the
about
way,
that.
That makes sense. Well, don't even worry about that.
You can have different, like, some people are just they're subjective, like what's it called? What's the word when you're going against it? Objections.
The word that you're looking for is that you told them it was not confusing, and then
hold up. Let me finish.
Arbitrary, which by definition makes it confusing.
Okay, so again, you could have absurd objections, right? And then it wouldn't be reasonable doubt.
But
so,
define absurd objections. Again, it's all just arbitrary based on what you feel like. Your definitions basically are just a way of you saying
let's just say if it's unreasonable, it would, like, illogical, it would probably employ some sort of fallacy. It wouldn't be.
You can say all those things, but
sound
ultimately
logic.
What you're saying is that whatever it is that I want it to be, I'll make it whatever I want in the moment. I'll decide.
You're saying me saying it needs to be sound logic means I'm catering it to my whims?
Which makes it a useless and terrible criteria.
Oh, you're saying me saying it needs to be logical and, like, not fallacious is me catering it to my whims?
No, you can say that.
You don't know what logical is.
You change it as you go. It's not a whim. It's all subjective. It's basically whatever you feel like in the moment.
Because look, percentage. We can. I can say I believe a proposition to be true if there are multiple photographs of it, multiple videos of it, multiple accounts of it going back for hundreds of years, and these are largely, well, almost completely undisputed. I can say that that's sufficient for me to say a proposition is true. You can't. I think that that's a problem.
No, it's not a problem. It's because people are different, right? So we all kind of like trend differently in the scale, in the spectrum of gullibility to cynicism, like that skepticism spectrum.
You can have a different standard.
Thresholds, right?
Sure, you can have a different standard to me, but my point is, I can apply that universally to any proposition that's presented to me. And I think I'm happy in saying that if that's the case, if that evidence of that quality and magnitude is presented to me for any proposition, whatever it may be, it's true. I can say I would accept that as a truth. And you can't say that. You have to say, well, maybe if I had a video on the equator, then you have to add another bit in all the time. And that, I think, is your problem. You haven't got anything universal. And because you haven't, that's an illustration of a confirmation bias, I feel. Okay, let me just read this. Hang on, just before you respond, take a moment to just gather your thought, and I'll just do this super chat. Jem, I think you need to eat some cake after speaking to percentage. Shout out to all Pinkertons too. We have successfully removed another target. I don't know whether I like the sound of that. That's thank you very much for the super chat, Maslow. Right. Sorry, go ahead.
So my question to you, Jem, is how many people would it take for you to take it wholesale for it to be definitive evidence? How many people would have to be giving these videos?
I don't know. It's difficult to put a bottom number on it, to be honest.
So millions, you would take it as true.
I'm sorry.
Why would the number of people presenting evidence be relevant? It's the quality of the evidence that's relevant.
For skepticism is. So millions of people propagating videos, you would deem it to be true, right?
No. It's not as simple as that, is it?
Well, that's really what you said. You take it.
No, I did not say that. I listed a number of things that would be in place. You can't just select one and say, oh, well, if that was there, then if the millions of videos of something, then a proposition's true. Because I did not say that.
Okay, I told a lot of videos over a large number of years, which are largely undisputed, right?
I talked about the accounts of the people, photographs also, all of that, all of the stuff that we have for this particular, for the two celestial poles, we can use an example. Then I would accept that proposition to be true. And I believe if that quality of evidence was in place for any other proposition, I would accept it to be true. But you can't just select one thing off that list and say, aha, well, now that qualifies. Because
I'm not. That's not my intention at all. I'm just trying to see where your threshold is. So I agree with you. If there's, if you have thousands of videos of random people, and you could do it yourself, it's verifiable that I would hold that to be true. Right, that we observe the two celestial poles in this example. Now, but let's limit it to see where your threshold actually is. Let's say you have, let's say you have 10 videos from 5 people over 5 years. Would you deem that to be true?
It depends, because again, it isn't just you've said, okay, I'm not just taking one thing off that list, and then you've gone and taken one.
You have photos.
You've gone and taken one thing off the list, and no.
I'm trying to include everything.
I'm going to say no. I'm just going to say no to that, but I think it's pretty irrelevant, and I think you're going to be groping around here in the dark for a long time with these different things that I've listed to try and find what my bottom line is for each. My greater point is that I've got the single standard that I can apply to anything, and I've given that standard. That I may accept things to be true at a lower standard, but for you to try and grope that out of me, I don't know whether that's really.
Let's say the only thing that we've changed is the number of people. Okay, so we
again, you're taking it down. Yeah, but you're taking it down to one element of that, and that is not what I listed.
We're trying to leave all the other elements the same, so you wouldn't say that. Oh, you're just you're changing the stuff.
Oh, right. Okay. So all the other elements are still in place. Then Yes, I accept the proposition to
You
be
have
true.
accounts and videos and long years from 400 people and thousands. Okay.
Yes.
Now, from the same,
I don't require photos and video to believe something to be true at all. If there are lots of accounts of it being true,
no, but you only have the accounts
that
for
to be
50
true.
people now.
I'm sorry.
The people that are giving accounts is dwindling, so you only have 50 people now.
No, well, no, but so now you've got an entirely different situation to the one I proposed.
That's it.
Haven't I? So haven't you? So maybe, possibly, depends. Depends on the proposition.
Standard and
it depends.
Everything.
Yeah, but I've given my standard, and I provided you what my standard is, and I've said that's a standard I can apply to anything. Now you're saying, but what about this other standard that you don't use?
You have
you can't apply that to everything, can you? That's a standard that I've not applied. That's not one I've applied. If there was accounts of something that from provided by 50 people, we can't then say that that's largely undisputed, can we? It's not really the same thing. So in that situation, I might consider that proposition to be true. I might not. But again, I don't really see what the point is of this. My point is, I do have one standard that I can apply universally, and you don't.
Yeah, I do.
Can I interject?
I already gave you my standard. But in any case, the point is that we're showing that you have varying levels of skepticism depending on the context, and you have doubt that depends on that as well. Varying levels of doubt, of reasonable doubt, right?
Right.
Which Veach was, trying to lambast me, saying that it's completely arbitrary and stuff like that. No, you have it pertaining to the context that you're talking about, the level of verifiability,
no arbitrary
evidence, the amount of people, whether it's in dispute or not. There's a lot of different things that kind of assess what the doubt associated to it will be. It's not completely arbitrary based on someone's whims or something.
But it is. It depends on the claim itself, and it depends.
Doesn't it bother you?
Right. It is pretty
subjective. No value.
You're breaking up a lot, Mike.
Does my mic work?
Yeah, your mic works, but your connection shit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, am I not clear right now?
No, you're okay. You're okay, Byron.
Then it was someone else. So what I'm trying to say is, it depends on the claim that's being made, and then it depends on your personal requirements. For example, if I said right now that I have a dog at home, the requirement for evidence for that would be extremely slim from everyone. Now, if I said I have a pet Bigfoot at home, the evidence for that would be grand and enormous. So we all hold different standards for different claims.
Exactly.
Wow, deja vu.
This is why when we talk about evidence,
but you're holding different standards for the same claim percentage. You're saying I need these things to be true, and they say, "Aha! Look, 2 celestial poles. Oh well, now I need a man on the equator."
No.
Yes.
I didn't. You said if we didn't have that, then I was relegated to the next best thing, basically. But I always said if I'm not there to verify it in person, or it can't be verified in person, then multiple angles video would be the next best thing.
I just don't understand what you get the benefit out of this. What with your method of coming to truth, we can't know much of anything about the world. Virtually nothing.
Know a great many things.
What? See, yeah, that's where it's weird. Why not let him negotiate his position? It's like he's asked, "What would you want?" He answers, and then it's like, then there's a fight because of that answer. It's like, of course he'll negotiate.
I just don't know what you could know about the world. If we're going to use these standards of you got to have multiple camera angles on everything, you got to have a camera and a camera of a camera.
Well, you would agree. Are you going to believe David Copperfield can make the Statue of Liberty disappear?
It means that all of science that has gotten us where we are is wrong.
Dude, you would agree with this, though, man. That's why y'all call him dishonest when he's holding your same standards.
No, we don't.
What are we talking about science
we
right
don't
now?
agree with
No,
this.
he's not even remotely holding the same standards, Don. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, you missed the David Copperfield part.
That we can use science to produce a freaking cell phone, all the technology to produce a cell phone, and that we can't figure out the shape of the Earth. It's the dumbest thing ever. I mean, come on.
Argument for incredulity right there.
Here, Don, here's a simple question for a percentage. percentage. Which do you hold to a higher regard? Simple observations or measurements?
Simple observation or measurement.
Correct.
They're not the same thing.
Observe a thing,
Which one's higher?
or we measure it.
It depends on the context.
Which one would you hold in higher regard?
It depends on the context. What are you talking about? Be specific.
Anything in general. If there's a light pole and we just look at the light pole, we can make observations about it. Now, if we measure a light pole, which one would you hold in higher regard scientifically and factually?
The height of the thing, if we measured it.
Just in general.
Well, you mentioned the light pole. The height of the light pole would be measurement. Now, if we're talking about, for instance, the horizon in the distance, whether it's straight or curved, I would say simple observation with our eyes, because they're the gold standard for seeing straight lines as straight lines. Because lenses.
So you're saying. So what you're saying is a horizon that's, let's just say 3 miles. Keep it even. You're saying that a horizon about 3 miles away, observing it would be a higher quality than measuring it.
And seeing it with a lens and trying to measure a curve from the lens, yes.
No. You're placing all kinds of constraints. I'm trying to keep it simple. What you're saying is a horizon about 3 miles away, it's higher quality to use observations than measurements. Is that what you're saying?
How would you measure the horizon 3 miles away?
No. We don't have to get into that. I'm asking for a specific level.
It's a malformed question. You have to tailor your question for the situation.
Or we can put a straight edge in front of it.
Observe or measure, and I'm saying horizon. You observe it. How would you measure it?
No, we
put a straight edge. Put a straight edge in front of it.
That's still you simply observing it. You just put a straight edge in front of it.
Percentage. It doesn't fucking matter how we do anything. I'm asking you, which one would you hold in higher regard? For example, if I gave you an observation of the horizon and I gave you measurements of the horizon, which one do you think would be of higher quality?
I would say, so like, who was it, Moyoc just now? I would say simple observation where you have like a straight edge in front of you would probably be the best thing. Measurements, like
that's a tool.
If you want to talk about how measuring it in person, because you have to remember, with all measurements, you're observing it, right? You're either observing it live, or you're observing it like in an image, or what have you. Right? So you're still relying on observation. That's why it doesn't really make sense to have this false dichotomy of observation versus measurement, because every single measurement is observed with simple observation. But in any case, with horizon, edge in front,
I'm asking you for a higher level,
and observing it like that would probably be the best way.
As tough as that answer was, can y'all respect how tough the question was? Would you answer it any differently?
Yes, measurements are of a higher quality always.
I wanted to say that at first instinct.
Sorry, go ahead.
I did jump to that instinct, but percentage did show the awkwardness of that question. I mean, it's
no awkwardness.
In my opinion, thank you.
Completely awkward, because for measurements you have to rely on simple observation. So to say that measurements are better is just asinine, because they rely on them.
It's not asinine, because the measurements are something beyond the observation. You have to do the observation, of course.
Yeah.
And then you have to do something beyond that. You have to quantify the observation.
Yeah, but how do you
it's
check the measurement? You observe it.
Just the observation. Hold on, I'm not done. It's going to be obviously superior than just the observation alone. It's an addition. It's an add-on.
Maybe he didn't give the best counterexample, but percentage. What about other examples, like throwing something in the air and burning it and seeing what color fireworks it is, or something? Like maybe there's a different example. Listen, guys, let's give respect to the question, right? It feels hard. I'm telling you, first instinct, boom, I want to be like measurements.
So the better question would be, what's better, a simple observation alone, or measurements and observation? That would be the better question.
And observation, when you say what's better, measurements or observation, you are implying that the observation does not include measurement, obviously. It's just English.
Yeah, but you have to understand that all measurements include observations.
Yes, I just said that. We both just said that. We agreed on that.
You just said observations don't include measurements. I'm saying vice versa. Measurements include observations.
And observations, when we say observation, we don't mean measurement. And so therefore, the observation plus measurement or plus quantification is going to be something that is superior. More information.
What I said.
I don't.
Right. I guess I was trying to imagine. Is there situations where like you couldn't measure, and that's maybe the horizon example wasn't the best one, but like maybe if we actually try to respect the question as strong as possible, like are there
technically
times
speaking,
Go ahead.
There are times
Technically
when
speaking, yes. Technically speaking, when you have a measurement, technically speaking, when you have a measurement, yes, you are also observing, because, for example, if you read from the meter, yes, you're doing that with your eye. That means that observation is a subset, or measurements are a subset of things that require observation. That means that actually the category of observation includes things that are much lower quality. So
it's more
measurements
detailed,
where you observe the measurement are a higher quality subset, which means that by definition they are stronger than a lot of the things in the I just observed category.
Exactly, but at the same time, you have to be specific as to how you're measuring something. Because, for instance, if you're doing it with a horizon and you're taking an image and then comparing, like observing the curve in this image that's you've squashed down or whatever, that measurement is the way that you measured it is worse than just observing it simply because you've created this distortion with the lens.
In the case of that image, with the red bars. In the case of the image with the two red bars that are on top of each other, that get squished together, we've all seen it. That one, if you look at it closely, while it's fully expanded, you can see that it's touching at the edges and crowned in the middle. It's just a little tiny bit, but you can see that it deviates from the straight edge. Now you can see that with your eyes. I mean, you can set that table up with those two bars in it. Put your eyes right there, and you can get it just aligned so you can see the edges touching the bar, and the center is upwelling, hilled up in the middle. So now you're using a tool, and you can determine how far up it is hilled up. If you wanted, you could put a mark that would show how high it's up. Now it's actually better, and now you can determine whether it changes day over day. No lenses.
I think I know what image you're talking about, but we can't actually verify that that's how it would be in person. Like we can't really demarcate where the barrel distortion is or not.
No.
More importantly, this conversation is about the principle of just like using measurements and using like other devices.
Barrel distortion, is that your catchphrase for everything?
Oh, you've completely ignored the function of the experiment. The straight edge is there to show that there is no distortion by the lens, that the system recording the image is capable of recording a straight edge. That was done, so any curved edge is a valid curved edge, not produced by the lens. This is exactly the purpose of the comparison. This is exactly how that observation was constructed, to do exactly the things you are objecting to have been handled, have been accounted for.
Are you talking about the red bar one, or is there a different one where they held up a straight edge and showed it?
Yes, the red bar. Those red and black objects are known straight edges.
Yeah, I believe I've looked into this one and actually edited the photo to show the curved lines and stuff. Me and Jeremy both went over it. So I'm pretty sure it doesn't have straight lines.
There was some barrel distortion, but the nature of barrel distortion does not do what that says. Like you as you got further and further from the center, you can see that there's a little tiny bit of curve in the table and stuff like that. But the straight edges on the top and bottom edge of the observation target were clearly showing curve.
Yeah, I remember going over this like 3 weeks ago or so. And I think my conclusion was that it wasn't very well done, and it should be done again. Because
it should be done again, but even with it not done again, can you see that it at least looks to be showing a curve, whether it's not perfectly level or whatever else you want to argue about it? You could tell that it's showing you a curved water and a straight beam on top and bottom.
Oh, but even the beam was a little bit curved. So again, it wasn't really it was inconclusive. I think that was my position on that one.
Inconclusive, but what direction did it lean? With all you know about cameras, could you have had a lens distortion that allowed the lines on top and bottom to be straight and the water to be curved? Is there any lens distortion that could do that?
I don't know, and there's no point in saying making a head gun to the head kind of decision when it could just be done properly. Where we can have more conclusive tests, because this is anyone that lives near.
You could do it.
A beat. I mean, I'm in the middle of the city, so maybe next year or whatever when I go somewhere to the where there's a coast, I could. But yeah.
Yeah, you got to do it at about 200 feet to get that observation. But
why is that?
No, because that's where you're going to see it exaggerated a little bit more.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is where I can accept this because I know from everything I know of cameras, there is no distortion that could accomplish what's happening in that image.
True. And also, I think that one attack that flat earthers use about experiments is they start quibbling about precision. But quite honestly, if you're trying to determine if, say, something is 100 meters long, if you can measure to a resolution of 0.01 of a meter, why are you quibbling about the accuracy of the reference when it is many, many times better than the measurements you're trying to make? That photo of the straight edges, the fact that you can discern questionably discern some curve on the straight edges is not relevant. The fact is that you can see many, many more times the amount of curve in the thing you're interested in. So your reference is still valid. It does not need to be perfectly flat. When you buy a flat surface reference for a machining shop, it will tell you within what tolerance it is flat, because it is never perfectly flat. You will pay for the amount of accuracy you need, but you know that it ultimately is not perfectly flat, but it is many times better than the things you want to measure. This is an experiment. It's typical of that. You can quibble about the slight non-straightness of the reference edges, but if it's many, many times better than the object you're trying to measure, that's just irrelevant.
And although it's hard to record it, you could actually look at that setup with your eyes, and you will see the same thing. It's just hard to see unless you compress it, but you could, when you get it all lined up perfectly, you get your head all just sitting exactly where you need it to be. The bottom edges of the water will be touching on the outside edges of your image, and in the center it'll be hilled up, a millimeter.
Yeah. To respond to the person that spoke before you, definitely, if there's like a kind of like an obvious difference between, and they're right beside each other, like the straight edge and the horizon, just like right at the same, almost like maybe 1-2 pixel difference in terms of where it is in the frame, and there's just a very obvious difference in terms of the curvature, and like that would be, it would be fine, but
that's what we have.
At the same time, it would be better to not kind of like overcomplicate it with margin of error of this and that. Try to minimize the curvature of the straight edge as much as possible. Try to avoid barrel distortion as much as possible, because you want to isolate or limit the errant variables.
That worked. That was achieved. That exactly what you just said there as a requirement was met in that setup.
I mean, it was like 3 weeks when I looked at it, and I don't think when I personally looked at it, for me, it was inconclusive. It wasn't that there was an obvious difference and stuff like that. It was kind of weird angles that the curves were at. But
that's because you have an unreasonable level of doubt.
If you say so, but definitely I feel
yes, I do. My opinion would be that you have an unreasonable level of doubt, and yet you use the phrase within reason an awful lot, and then don't apply it to your own arguments.
No, I do, and I already said that.
No, my opinion is you don't.
That's fine, but I've already said that somewhat your reasonable doubt is it can vary, right? But there's still a point where it can be absurd, where it can be completely unwarranted and becomes unreasonable. It becomes fallacious.
Well, reasonable most often has to do with the common man's reason. So most people looking at this would say there's no reasonable doubt.
What do you mean by the common man's reason?
majority rules, baby.
I would say that's where you can slippery slope.
You could get into some slippery slope there, but it works for most things. You know, if everybody thought that they saw David Copperfield fly, I would say, and they actually thought that he was actually breaking the laws of physics, well, you know what? Then I'm not going to go with the majority of people on that.
Yo, you can't even touch David Copperfield. That's some next level shit. That's like demon magic at its best.
Yeah, exactly. So I would not believe, if I had a room full of Dons or whoever that was, then I would deviate from reasonable on that.
Oh God, a room full of dons.
Yes. And like a room full of flat earthers. Absolutely. I would, whatever they said, I would have to take with a grain of salt.
It would set up an infinite retardation loop, wouldn't it?
Can we actually get a room full of flat earthers in the exact location?
What do you mean? Yeah, that's been done.
Like once again, so we know exactly. Then we can just, something may or may not happen. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's been a repeated experiment.
But then
I was incredulous that you could actually get 100 people together, but they did it, man.
I thought having that much density in one place would cause like a singularity or something.
Apparently, they kept the seating far enough apart that it never achieved singularity.
Ah, social distancing. Got it. Okay.
What event are you guys talking about?
Any of the flat Earth get-togethers.
Oh, I thought he was talking about one in particular that was done during this lockdown.
No, I mean, that was kind of alluded to when they said social distancing, but generally speaking, there has been several events in the past few years where they got more than 100 crazies together. The funny thing about those is almost everyone to a man at those events doesn't have the same standard of reasonable.
I got something for that, actually.
That's not just for flat earthers. That's everyone. Everyone falls differently on this spectrum of skepticism. You know.
Some people are much more, let's say, unreasonable with their categories of unreasonable doubt.
That's on both ends. There's some people that they're way too global and too trusting, and there's people that are too cynical.
So where do you fall, percent?
I have a healthy skepticism.
Perfect. He's perfect.
For example, let's say, let's talk about Russia and China. Can we verify that those, or I don't know, Russia and or China and Finland, let's say. Let's verify that those countries exist. Well, do we have an observer observing both of them at the same time? No.
Nope.
So China and Finland cannot justify that they are real beyond reasonable doubt.
America is the only place on Earth.
Very good.
I did see a rock that they called England when I flew over it, and I saw Germany, so I guess those could exist too.
Yeah, but as soon as you leave them, you're no longer observing them, so they might have disappeared.
That is true.
The advanced US forces base of England.
Also, you might have a cat, and your friend might be a kind of, well, no, you don't actually have a cat. Then you bring the cat to your friend and try to get him to touch it, and he will just say, well, that's not really a cat, that's a dog. What are you going to do?
You'll say, that's not your cat. You just picked that up off the street just to prove it to me.
That is not my dog. Does your dog bite?
They call it by its name. See if it comes to you. Show me the cat food in the water.
Did not bite.
Show me the cat food in the water bowl.
Yeah, if I took a picture of my dog, most people in the room would reasonably think that's probably my dog.
Well, the problem is trust, though, too, because for me, if I trust somebody, whatever they say, I'll just accept it. You know, like if someone tells me, like, "Hey, I just ran 8 miles this morning," and I said, "Dude, you haven't ran for like 3 years, and you just pumped out 8? Damn, that's pretty good, you know." But if someone told me a bunch of bullshit in the past, and then they come out and say, "Oh, I ran 8 miles," I'm gonna be like, "Ah, God, you lying motherfucker," you know, like.
I think the problem there is, though, with you, Crit, is that you assume that people have lied to you, and essentially, in the grand scheme of things, nobody has lied to you about anything regarding the Earth spherosity on the scientific side of things.
Well, no, I think how you got me messed up here is that I don't assume anything. I take things at face value, even if it's a claim about me. So let's put the globe aside for a second. And when someone says, "Hey, Craig, you're retarded," sure, I've been retarded in the past. I've fully accepted that. And now, but if they just say I'm retarded because I don't believe them, then I'm like, "Oh, you almost had me, you motherfucker!" Right? Close.
Well, nobody. I think that nobody just comes in and says you're retarded. With at least my observation of most of these debates.
Oh yeah, I see.
I mean, some Globers can be toxic.
It starts off with somebody honestly trying to talk to you, and then what appears to be unreasonable standards of evidence and deflection are used, and at that point, you're called retarded. It's an observation.
Since you admit that you have been...
It was more of a side thing about the retarded thing. It was, I guess, generally what I get to is like if I try to explain flat Earth to somebody and why I no longer think the Earth is a globe, and then they turn around and say I didn't explain shit. I'm like, really? I just spent the last like half hour.
Listen. Hold on. You're at so this is how you could get called retarded when like you did nothing to warrant, or what, you're not actually retarded. So let's say you're visiting someone in a special needs like care home or something like that, right? And it's wintertime, you slip on the ice, you're outside the place, and it's a girl walking into work, and it's her first or second day. She's not familiar with all the different retards in the place. So she sees you slipping and trying to like get up and struggling because maybe you sprained your leg or something like that, and you just look retarded. So she's like, "Oh, you're retarded? Let me help you."
Yeah, we see a lot of that with flat Earth also. I mean, there's a point when you become on our side, the globe side, there's a point when the standard for somebody proving that they're retarded becomes much lower.
Yeah, and ditto to the globe side too. Because at some point, if I keep hearing the same arguments, like photographs from space, flat Earth people don't understand science.
That's usually true.
Yeah. Well, my science bona fides were tested by Zanuck. He said I was the first flat earther ever to pass his scientific acumen. Then to have somebody come back around and be like, not only are they throwing Zanuck under the bus, but they're throwing my whole government-sponsored education under the bus just so they can say the Earth is not flat, therefore it's a globe. I'm going to raise the bullshit flag every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
What I see happening
your
with you,
was government sponsored, you're definitely a shill.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I see happening with you, Crit, though, is you may understand some of the things to do with the globe, or let's say all of them.
Okay.
But then you express confusion about how things work in other sentences. Like I'm just going to use an example. I don't understand how light bends in the atmosphere. How
Okay, I can explain
why
it.
things move on the horizon. You come up with that. I don't understand how you come up with that.
Listen,
and
I'll
still
explain.
claim to know how it works.
Yeah, Mayak, I'll explain it. Okay, ready? The first thing is that I understand the globe explanations. I dove into all of them. I actually used to argue against flat earthers in favor of the globe. But one day I said, I'm going to test my own explanations and see how far I get. And I barely got off a bar napkin before I was like, I'm out of proof. Because at some point,
what are you talking about?
What's the one thing that turned it?
A bar napkin?
Well, this is it's basically a side story that people that I talk about sometimes.
So North and South Celestial Pole, polar star conundrum, the path of the sun on the flat Earth, the sun not setting or changing angular size on the flat Earth.
You ready?
All that stuff.
I got all that.
GPS.
Yep, I got all that.
Hold on, space travel.
All of it, yeah.
Orbits.
All
around the world, lots of countries, many people.
All of it explained, because the idea is like if
all of it is explained. You mean hand waved?
Let me make a prediction.
Worldwide deception. Worldwide deception.
No, if you try to do that stuff though, how far will you get? I'm not talking about listing a bullet form of explanations. I'm talking about if you try to do it, how far can you get?
Drop of the horizon with elevation. Geodetic surveying.
Star conundrum.
All you're doing is just shotgunning. I'm saying pick one topic and let's explore it to its logical conclusion.
So, Crit, I noticed, Crit, that you didn't answer any of the. You did this yesterday again. You always go back to, yes, I am so like I was able to answer Nathan Oakley, and I am able to answer these questions, but then you don't answer any of them.
What the polar star conundrum?
Yeah, the polar star thing, it says right in the definition that these are apparent locations. They're not physical locations. If someone were to ask me, how would you verify?
How is it that people on Earth can look different directions and see the same thing? Doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, they're imaginary apparent locations. They're not real locations.
Apparent doesn't mean imaginary.
Yeah, but they also say imaginary in the definition too. I added
the
on.
pole. The pole.
I added.
Wait,
hold on. I could get through my answer if you want to hear it. If you don't want to hear it, just overtalk me.
Fucking cocksucking prick.
Okay, well there we go, Curves. I accept that.
You accept that? Okay. Yeah. So you accept that you were wrong.
No, I'm just sick of Crit deciding when somebody else is done. And
if you want to overtalk me, and I'll be quiet. I said that. If you don't want to hear my answer, start talking and I'll stop. That's the only thing I'm offering right now. Is if you don't like that, in some
martyr again.
Just let me know, and I'll be like, what's the next possible solution we can reach? Because there is a solution here. I just need to know what it is.
You seem to like to play
We
this.
have all these independently. These are all independently verifiable facts about reality that all happen to coincide on a sphere that's roughly 8,000 miles in diameter. Why would all these supposedly apparent observations all converge on this 8,000 mile diameter sphere? They all work perfectly on if we assume we're on a sphere 8,000 miles in diameter, and they're completely independent, right? The polar star conundrum, the path of the sun between the equinoxes and the equator, the speed of the sun, the subsolar point, all those things, right? The drop of the horizon with elevation, everything works out on an 8,000 mile circumference or diameter sphere. Why would they all converge on the same information?
Yeah, I definitely disagree with that.
Why do you disagree? What is there to disagree?
Okay, which one do you want to do first? Pick one, and I'll go through it to its logical conclusion.
Okay, I got one. Here's an easy one. The path of the subsolar point throughout the year, moving between the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, the speed of the subsolar point versus the drop of the horizon with elevation. Those two both give you an 8,000 mile diameter sphere, and there's no reason why they should.
Okay, that's multiple ones. So which one do you want to pick and explore?
No, those are two things.
I just need one thing.
The path of the subsolar point and the path and speed of the subsolar point on the flat Earth, and the drop of the horizon with elevation. Explain those two things. Why do they both converge on an 8,000 mile diameter sphere?
Okay, which one first?
You pick.
Who cares?
Okay,
pick one.
So right there, the analemma is what you're talking about, right? Or analemma?
No, it's not the analemma. This has nothing to do with the analemma.
Okay, well, you're going to need to explain what you're talking about then, because
okay.
My understanding is
you understand. You understand that there's a subsolar point where the sun is at the zenith of an observer on the Earth, and there's only one point on the Earth at any given moment that is the subsolar point, right?
Okay, I get what you're saying now. For me, an observation.
It's a point where the sun is directly over your head, which means that any angles or refractions or things can't happen because it's directly over your head.
Yeah, this is basically why the gunfighters, the Wild West, said high noon, right? So neither gunfighter had an advantage or a disadvantage.
Not quite the same.
Okay, but either way.
Okay, so how is it not the same? Help me understand where you're coming from.
If you're outside the tropics, you're never directly beneath the sun. We're talking 90 degrees straight up altitude, directly overhead.
Directly over your head at your zenith.
Overhead. Directly up, straight up.
There's no point in North America. There's no point in North America other than, I believe, parts of Hawaii. I don't know what the latitude of Hawaii is. Roughly, Hawaii is kind of I think Hawaii is about as far within North America that you could, or it's not technically North America, within America that you could see the subsolar point.
Okay, so am I at least barking up the right tree when I say that high noon, right?
Yes. That's
okay, I'm just making sure I want to make sure I'm cracking like a sky.
High noon traditionally just means when the sun reaches its highest point throughout the day.
But it's the idea.
Let's not derail, though. Continue, Chris.
Okay, so I would say this, that an observation of the sun is not an observation of the Earth.
Oh, boy.
That you should be able to, not you, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Because a few times I've said you and people went off the rails. What I'm saying here is I would not look up at the sun and claim I'm actually observing the Earth. Does that make sense?
Well, it's just we can use it as an inference because that's how humans figure stuff out. We inference things. And all right, we can say it has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth, but the interesting thing is something completely independent, which is like how much the horizon drops with elevation. When you measure the horizon drop with elevation, both of those observations together work on a sphere 8,000 miles in diameter. And then we can further add how much, for example, in the Northern Hemisphere, how much Polaris moves as you travel north or south 69 miles, or 1 degree of 69 miles. That also corresponds to a sphere 8,000 miles in diameter. Now, those are three completely independent observations that all work on a sphere 8,000 miles in diameter and only work on a flat Earth if you say those objects are magic and have behaviors that can't be explained and have behaviors that would have to be they'd have to be different for every individual. They would have to be like a mind projection for people strapped into the matrix where everyone has their own independent observation. That's the only way that you could say that those observations all converge on a flat Earth, but they all work perfectly within a shared reality on an 8,000 mile diameter sphere. So you can't just write that off.
Yeah, see, I'm not saying I'm writing it off. What I'm saying is that's not my claim. If that's your claim, I understand you.
Well, there is no other. I've had this conversation with other flat earthers. There's no explanation quite other than to say, well, we don't know what that stuff is. It's magic. It's different for everybody. Everyone has their own magic that they all observe, and it's different for every person has their own individual magic. That is the only flat earth explanation. And by the way, that is a actual accurate and true and honest explanation, because on the flat earth, that's the only way to make all these explanations converge on one answer, which is that we are all in the matrix and we all have a projected reality into our brains that's independent and magic for every person.
Or I could just go back to like before the Earth was claimed to be a globe and just use all the people back then and all their explanations.
Those people, they didn't have transcontinental transportation. They didn't have, they didn't have airliners. They also didn't have light speed or near light speed communication point to point. So their observations were pretty limited, right? So they couldn't like track the movement of the subsolar point across huge huge distances of land, but we can, because number one, we've got airliner travel, and we also have near speed of light communication throughout the world.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. I want to explore each individual topic.
So for you to just say, well, let's go back to what those people thought. Those people were operating on very limited data sets compared to what we have in the 21st century.
Let's use 18th century surgical instruments and technology to perform brain surgery instead of 21st century.
Sounds good to me.
I'll sign up.
Yeah, that's actually quite funny because when, if you remember the voyage home, right, where they went back in time to save the whales.
I don't know about that derailing tactic.
No, you brought up the brain surgery thing.
Oh,
I
do.
I got something I could tie in with that to give you an example where what I'm talking about. If you will, if I may follow your statement to its logical conclusion. Is that okay, or should I just ignore it?
You didn't follow Jake's thing to its logical conclusion.
Okay, so which one am I supposed to jump on now?
Oh,
Because
Jake's
I've got
for
multiple-
sure. Jake's for sure.
Okay,
You're stuck. You're trapped in Jake's.
Okay, no, I'll go ahead. I'll go back to Jake's.
Okay.
So this is where
have to
I'm
invoke
talking about
magic.
the bar napkin thing, because one time I have got my tire cover for my Jeep says research flat Earth on it, and this guy behind me said, do you actually believe that? I said, no, I know the Earth is flat, and he responded to me, he's like, how? Okay, go ahead, Jake. I'll finish my story when you're done.
You're not really addressing any of the things I said.
You tell a lot of stories.
You're going off on some tangent about your bar napkin, but I'm asking you to specifically address how do we explain away the subsolar sun problem?
Okay, okay.
And there's, by the way, there's multiple aspects to it. Okay, let me tell you all the interesting facets of that, which is why it's a great argument that I think Curved and Kosho and I have been pushing for a few months now. And that's the fact that number one, we can track the speed of the subsolar point because there's lots of cities in South America and South Africa that line the Tropic of Capricorn, the equator, and the Tropic of Cancer, and we can ask them, at what time of day is the sun at its zenith at your location? And we know those distances because those distances, they can be flown, they can be driven, there's roads that go between them. And so that way we can track the speed of the subsolar point, okay? The other thing that we know is we know that in the northern, in the far northern territories, right, like Barrow, Alaska, we know that they have 24-hour days where the sun revolves them around in a circle, revolves around them in a circle. And we also know how far the distance is from northern Alaska, from Barrow, Alaska, to any of these points on the equator and the tropics. And the thing is, when you do all the math for that of how fast the subsolar point is traveling, and then those distances, if we assume a flat Earth with a place in the middle where the sun revolves around them in a circle, like we could use Barrow, Alaska as the North Pole, even though it's not quite on the North Pole, and we end up with distances that are impossible to explain. Like, for example, under those types of maths, the Tropic of Capricorn is 50,000 miles in circumference.
Okay, so what I'm going to say again is, like, for me, right? For me now, if I'm going to invoke the sun as my proof of the globe, I'm going to need to know that piece of evidence perfect down to the last detail. And this includes all the claims made about the sun and how this works, all the way down to the very last detail. So like if I were to say, without Googling it, right, can you give me the chemical composition of the photosphere?
What does that have to do?
This has to do with the
you don't need to know anything. You don't have to know anything about how the sun operates to make this observation.
Yeah,
why would that matter?
Go ahead. Okay, you have to know everything perfect down to the last detail if you're going to invoke something else to prove something that is not related to that.
No,
because
thankfully that's not how science works.
Yeah,
Thank
it's called controlled variables.
We're just tracking an object.
That's not what a controlled variable is, and that's also not what you have to do. Neither one of those things is true.
So this is what I'm saying. Like, this is, from my understanding of science, is that if I'm going to use science to prove a shape of an object, it will be observations about that object. I wouldn't deflect from that object.
We don't know anything. We don't know, but Crit, we don't know everything there is to know about something for anything. Like, there's not a single thing in the world you could say that's true of. So obviously, that's a criteria that isn't really relevant or realistic.
Yeah, there is. For me, it is. That's what I'm trying to tell you. If I'm going
there's not a single thing. There's not, name anything, and I'll tell you things.
Your mom is your mom.
Okay, how about this? Ready? I'll just throw without Googling it. If I told you that the sun is X number of years old,
okay,
and you asked me to prove that, right? And you said, how would you know this? And I just said, I Googled it. Would you be like, Crit, you're probably full of shit, dude? Or would you be like,
can I look up in an airplane and not know what airplane it is?
Well, hey, Mayak, hold on. I don't want
to tell you where it is.
I'm sorry, Mayak.
I can tell you like how big it is, how far away it is.
Yeah, hold on. I love you like a brother, but we got to keep on one topic to its logical conclusion, okay? Just one topic.
Same topic.
Okay?
To be fair to Crit, Jake has not stated the function of the sun in this experiment. He has not declared what properties of the sun he is using.
It's movement, I think, is what he's getting at.
Yeah, we're
right?
just referencing the location of an object over the plane. It doesn't matter what that object is or how it. Just like if we're referencing an airplane that's flying over our city, right? I don't need to know how that airplane works or what kind of engines it has or how those engines work. I don't have to know anything about it other than I'm just referencing this object when it's over my head and then it's over somebody else's head on the other side of town. And I say, hey, tell me when this object is over your head. And then we can time how long it takes to get there and we can figure out the speed of that object.
Well, you're trying to figure the speed, so that's something you need to know about that. You're saying you didn't need to know anything about it. How would that work?
Right, and we can figure out the speed of an airplane or a UFO that's powered by alien technology. We can still figure out its speed by measuring how long it takes to go. Hey, can somebody mute? Can someone please mute him, please?
How the fuck are you going to figure anything out about it if you don't know anything about it?
You still haven't stated this. The fact that the sun repeats on a 24-hour cycle is one of the key aspects of using the sun. And that's what would limit Crit being able to criticize your use of the sun, because you need to specifically claim the properties of the sun that it is you are using. The 24-hour repetition, the annual cycle from one tropic to the other, and that it's been used as a positional reference. We're not actually discovering anything about the sun in this experiment. We're discovering things about the Earth.
I mean, I bizarre. It's actually kind of fun to have a conversation back and back now without interrupting each other. But from my point of view, is what I'm getting at here is like if I could do an analogy like some other people have done. Say if I find shit in my backyard, right? That it is not one of my dogs, one of my 6 dogs, and I'm like, because I always keep the shit cleaned up, because I don't want animals and other stuff going, getting in the backyard and shit. So I go to my neighbor and I say, there's shit in my backyard. Why'd you let your dog come back to my backyard? And he's like, I don't have a dog. I wouldn't start arguing with him about the shit. I would be like, oh, okay. So right here, what I'm getting at is that you're trying to get me to talk about my dog shit, and I've never put a dog in the race to begin with. What I have said is like you're barking up the wrong tree here, okay? I'm not talking about some sort of model of flat Earth that invokes the movement of the sun. If you want me to talk about the movement of the sun, I can talk about that. And I tried to talk about that with the analemma, but then that was considered, I'm not sure why that was thrown out to begin with. But I can talk about analemma. Yeah, that's why I was trying to go with that, because I can, when I look at the sun and the sun's movement, I think analemma. I don't think about this sub-solar point or high noon.
It doesn't mean it's not a thing, though. Those are two
but it doesn't mean
but
doesn't mean I'm going to claim it, though. You're expecting me to claim something that I put no claim to.
Crit doesn't claim to any facts about reality, guys. Okay,
no, listen. I said I did. I'll talk about the analemma if you want to talk about sun movement or moon movement. But this high noon idea, like somehow noon,
Crit won't accept facts that disagree with him. Sorry, guys. Just stick to the facts he agrees with.
No, I said I won't make claims to facts I cannot validate.
Sure. Okay, so just say I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, hold on. We got a claim right now on the table that we can address. Because a few days ago, VD was saying I didn't know what standard deviation was. I sent my math to Kosho, and I showed him.
Totally didn't even get the right problem. Good job.
Yeah, no, I did actually.
You did, because he didn't ask you to do standard deviations on whatever timing you were keeping.
Yeah, that's what my experiment was based on time. So I used it in real time. I hand jammed it.
You also didn't calculate standard deviation correctly.
Microsoft Excel.
Yeah, I did. So that's what type of the claims. Oh, okay. Explain how I didn't then.
But
your answer was 17. That is not a standard deviation, my friend.
No, it was 17 minutes. Here's the standard deviation.
17 minutes is not a standard deviation. Thank you.
Here it is right here. This is why I worked out when he was giving his presentation of the measurements of that he did with all the people. with the shadows. And this, I kept track of how many times Flat Earther was invoked, or Flat Earth model, or Flat Earth people, not including the people who were in his own experiment. Okay, I factored them out.
A deeper and deeper hole, because that's not what he was asked to do.
Yeah. So then
Also,
what I did
doesn't
was
take 17
step
minutes.
one. Okay, I'll break it down for you, Big Bird and Barney style, and you can tell me what I got wrong.
Yeah.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to keep throwing shit in the conversation, or do you want to finally accept that you're defeated on this?
What is this?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I must be negated, which means I'm right.
What is this? I'm sorry. Oh, my brain hurts looking at that graph.
The graph doesn't make sense to you?
Not at all.
Why does it say 132 as the mean and then 132 as the right, as 312 as the tail?
Okay, this is every 60 seconds. If I made a mistake on the math here,
You didn't even make a distribution. This is not even a proper distribution where you can get the mean and standard deviation.
Okay, right, this is what I showed you what I did. So basically, what I started with is every time for his 17 minutes.
That he got it right, guys. Come on.
Yeah, for his 17. Oh, no, I'll walk you through it. And you can let me know what I got wrong. Because just telling me I don't understand deviation, I'm gonna raise the bullshit flag, and twice on Sunday.
Sure. Explain it, Barney. Do it.
Okay.
Barney, whatever you said. Barney, Big Bird.
Big Bird and Barney style.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I did was over the 17-minute presentation, I took timestamps each time Flat Earth people were invoked that wasn't included in his experiment. The first one, and after I got those timestamps, I converted them to seconds. So I got 59, 7, 196, 81, 155, 277, 158, and 126. After that, I made a mean or average of 132 seconds. Then I took the square root and subtracted the mean.
Square root?
Come on, don't. I knew you
Seriously?
No, just
or
continue.
Square. I'm sorry.
Please go on. I'll pretend you didn't say that.
Yeah, I took the
my
square.
brain just exploded.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I took the square.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm okay. Hold on, just give me a second here. I took the square, so a 59 gave me the number 5,329. Then once I added all those up together, that part of the formula, I got 29,090. Then I took the square root of that to give me a mean of deviation of 3,636. I then took the square root of that to get a standard deviation of 60 seconds.
So your first problem, Craig.
Hold on, I'm not done yet.
I'm not done yet. Formula for standard deviation, first of all.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. So then I put 132.
You started wrong.
Yeah, then I put the 132.
Down the wrong road.
That's fine. Let him be wrong, guys. Let him finish, because that is rude.
Let him finish. Just let him finish.
So then I put the 132, which was the average, 132 seconds. Then one standard deviation to the left or right, subtracting the 60-second standard deviation. Then a second standard deviation, left or right, because this will tell you how often, if a presentation is being presented about the globe, will Flat Earther be invoked in that presentation. And this is only 8 data points. If I get more data points, it will this bell curve will increase in accuracy.
So Crit, can I go first? Anyone? Crit,
go ahead.
Your first mistake. So you were wrong in statistically calculating the standard deviation from, I think, either maybe your second step was incorrect, but also the figure.
His first step was incorrect.
Yeah, the figure.
He started measuring the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Tosho asked him to measure a specific thing.
Okay.
Specifically, the points in his paper.
Yeah. So beyond
Hold on. I'll correct it. This is what I was doing in my experiment.
It heard something else in his head and decided to follow the voices
Shut the
in his
fuck
head.
up, you'll hear the answer.
Well, maybe if you don't
shut
listen to
the
the
fuck
voices
up,
in
you'll
your
hear the
head,
answer.
the people
Yeah, if you shut the fuck up, you'll hear the
you can
answer.
learn something.
Yeah, listen. If you shut the fuck up, you hear the answer. I said my standard deviation of 15 minutes was based on time, was based on measuring time, then converting that time to a usable form.
I'm sorry, is it 15 minutes or 17 minutes?
The 17 minutes was actually it compared to the same presentation that Kosho gave, and all this was
Does
DM the
anyone
Kosho.
know what he's talking about now?
Well, it's completely non sequitur to what we were talking about, but keep going.
And it's also nonsensical within its own frame.
I'll explain how it's a sequitur, because I said that I trust people who don't give me bullshit. Okay? So had verbal diarrhea had not made the claim that I don't know about standard deviation, and he came back with something that said, well,
I
hey,
now
Crit,
have evidence.
have you
don't
looked at
understand
this?
Standard deviation. Thank you.
Have you looked at this data? I would have been like, oh, sure, I'll look at that. I'll check it out because I someone I can trust. But now he's put bullshit on layers of bullshit on things that I have to clear first.
Gross.
Before I'll look at anything he ever says again.
Crit, it also looks like, Crit, your figure, you tried to plot a distribution on a temporal axis, on a time axis.
With a negative time?
Yeah, that part.
What does that mean?
I'll explanation for that. I said that with more data points, this graph will get better.
No. The graph is wrong to begin with.
No, it's not wrong to begin with, because this.
It's not wrong.
No, it's not wrong. I'll tell you why. Because right now it's wrong because negative 48 seconds doesn't exist. But with more data points, that negative 48 seconds will move.
Never exist.
It will move over. Okay.
Crit.
Hold on. With only 8 data points, I got a result that does not match reality. I need more data because I can look at this graph and be like, this bell curve isn't accurate because it doesn't reach out until 3 standard deviations.
It's not accurate because the person making it isn't accurate.
It only reaches out to 2 standard deviations. Because when you get to the 3rd standard deviation, basically what this would be saying, if you were to interpret this, is that there's people wanting to jump in and screech about flat Earth who didn't. There was more screeching that didn't happen, is what this was basically predicting. It'd be a way of interpreting the bell curve in a sort of metaphysical way.
Crit, you're so good at this. I can't believe no one's hired you to do this professionally.
You make it seem like stats isn't a required class when you take any bachelor's degree.
This is not statistics.
Was your degree in comedy? Maybe irony?
See, there's more bullshit.
You have a bachelor's degree?
Yeah.
In what?
I don't understand how we lost such track of it. The question is, Crit, why is it that those observations of the sun correspond to the observations that would be experienced if we were to model somebody on a sphere 8,000 miles in diameter making these observations? It works that way, and then we measure how much the horizon drops with elevation, which has nothing to do at all with the path of the sun, and we get a sphere 8,000 miles in diameter as well. Why would those two numbers both come in together?
Yeah, I said
independently.
Each one to its full logical conclusion. Did we get number 1 to its full logical conclusion? Can we move on to number 2 now?
I mean, what was the resolution on the sun? We don't know everything about the sun, so we can't use it?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm getting to. Unless you can tell me everything you know about the sun, so how can you possibly invoke the sun as your part of your proof?
So if we just use it as a reference object, it's no different than if we're measuring how fast the plane goes over imagine there's a plane circling our city, right? And we're trying to figure out how fast that plane is going. So we can ask observers all along the path of the plane and say, hey, when this plane is right over your house, mark the time down, and then we can drive to those people's houses and reset our odometer and figure out the distance. And then using that, we can independently verify how fast that plane is moving and how big that circle that plane is making over our city. Even though it could be a UFO using some fucking crazy alien technology that we don't know anything about. As long as it's an object that we can reference, then there's no reason why we can't use it as an object of reference. It doesn't matter if it's powered by alien farts, or it doesn't matter what it is.
If you do you, then. Because for me, if I'm going to invoke an object, I better bring the proof before I bring...
Why? What is wrong with my methodology?
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm saying you...
So why can't we use the sun for that same thing as the UFO flying over our city?
You do you. That's not me. Okay?
So it's just a hand wave. Yes, the math and everything works for these types of observations, but I choose not to use it because it debunks the flat Earth, and that destroys my pipe dream, so therefore we can't use it.
No, that's not exactly what I said at all. I'll explain it again.
That is
Okay.
exactly what you're saying, Chris.
This is what I'm saying. No, listen. I'll tell you what I'm saying. If you want to tell,
you've been going on. You've been going on, and I've been wanting to make one point.
Okay,
No, I'm not.
When D-Mock tried to jump in, he got muted. So why is the globalist jumping in?
I don't.
Okay, listen. D-Mock, the flat
I don't give a fuck about that.
Hold on, the flat earther tried to jump in, got muted. No, I'm going to give my answer now. We're not going to get no more red herrings.
There was no answer.
No more red herrings. I'm going to give you my answer. No more red herrings. Okay, no more diversions.
I don't give a fuck.
I'll give you my answer.
Okay, here's my all day long like this.
Now, right now, you're trying to deflect because you know I got an answer for this. You don't want to hear it. You're scared.
Okay, go ahead, Crick. Go for it, Crick, because then I'm going to make my point. It's going to destroy your shit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fuck off.
Yeah,
Fuck
okay.
off, little baby.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. You fuck off too.
Go ahead.
Okay,
come on, answer.
Yeah, go ahead. Fuck off.
Go answer.
Yeah, fuck off.
Crit,
answer, or I'm going to make my point.
No, keep going. I can't go until this guy fucks off.
Pure.
Okay, well, I'm going to make my point. So the logic
more,
that you were running down is the
go
same
ahead.
thing.
Fuck
like
off when you're ready. When you're ready to fuck off, I'll go.
Driver.
Yeah, go ahead. You can fuck off when you're ready. Yeah, I got you, Patrick. Because when the flat earther tried to chime in, they got muted. Yeah, go ahead. You can fuck off when you're ready.
Both of you guys, both of you. But Pure, like you said, just go after him. Just wait till he's done.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is the problem. It's like because I keep losing my train of thought, then it makes it sound like I'm a fucking idiot. Because I'm trying to keep. No, seriously, it's really hard.
It really is. I agree entirely. I absolutely agree with that. That happens to me all the time. It's very difficult when people just won't shut the fuck up. Anyway, go ahead, Crit.
With Crit, we can't tell when he is on his train of thought and when he isn't. There's no difference.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
Well, that's his style. You know, give him his style. He's, I'm rambly as well, aren't I? Just let him do his thing. He's not impolite in his delivery, is he? So at least credit him for that. Go ahead, Crit, if you can.
Okay, so my idea, if I'm going to look up, okay, I'll try to break it down to the lowest possible level for me, okay, not for anyone else. Okay, for me. If I'm looking up, I'm no longer going to make a claim about what's down. Does that seem like a good enough answer?
Absolutely not.
Chris, the point of doing that is that you can gather evidence from looking up. You may not have a proof of what's below you, but you're gathering evidence to determine what's below you.
Yeah, I totally accept that. Yeah, you can look at a lot of things and observe one thing to give more information about something else, okay? Like looking at a cocoon and determining what type of butterfly it's going to be. Obviously, that is true in multiple avenues of science. But for me, I'm not going to say this cocoon is a butterfly if I've never studied maggots before.
Maggots?
Yeah, but we're not saying anything about the sun though, Crit. We're just using it as a reference object, just like we could use, because we know this method works for helicopters and airplanes and frisbees and any other object that's flying over your head. There's no reason why we cannot use the sun. And for you to say, well, we'd have to know what the sun is just ridiculous.
No,
okay, sure, and I accept
we have to
that.
know what it is. We have to know everything about it. That's like saying a truck driver has to know how to be a diesel mechanic and tear down a Caterpillar engine, or he can't drive the fucking truck. This logic does not follow.
False analogy fallacy.
Yeah, that's about something. I thought I was being retarded. That was absolutely peak retarded. Okay, so
no, it's not. You're saying we have to know everything about it, or we don't know anything. That literally was your argument.
You do agree that the truck driver would at least need to know how to use the gas pedals, right?
No, this is what I'm getting at. So if I want to use your analogy, let's go down this road. It would be like me going to a truck driver and being like, hey, I want you to break down this diesel engine as the only proof as to how you can drive that truck. Then the truck driver says, well, I use these gadgets and these pedals. I downshift for this reasons. These are the different laws that govern commercial truck driving. And I'd be like, gotcha, bitch. You can't break down the diesel engine. Therefore, you're not a truck driver. That's your guys' logic, not mine.
No,
my logic would be as long as that guy didn't lie to me about some bullshit, I would accept his explanation that he's a truck driver.
You said he has to know everything about it.
False.
So he would know how to.
No,
yes,
false.
You did.
No, I didn't say that at all.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Crit. Did you not say in response to Jake that in order for us to make any claims about the shape, of the Earth we live on using observations of the sun, we must know every single thing? Can you, without googling, can you tell me every atom in the photosphere? Did you not say this?
No, there was a.
You didn't say this?
No.
Oh my!
Well, I think I said
literally what I just said.
I think I said was what was the not the atoms, but it was like the percentages of stuff inside the
exactly.
photosphere.
Your point was that can you?
Yeah. So
can you
someone
tell me
gave. Oh,
every
listen. Hold
single
on.
thing?
Shut the fuck up. I'll give you an example. So if someone would have said, "Listen, Chronic, okay," if I said to you, "What makes up the photosphere? What objects, right?" And you said, "Well, I don't know for sure, but I think it's mostly hydrogen, and then helium, and a bunch of other shit that I didn't quite memorize." I'd be like, "Wow, thank you for your answer. That's really impressive. You know something about the sun that you didn't have to Google." I would be like, "Well, that right there helps me build trust because you gave me an honest answer." In the flip side, if I ask you what makes up the photosphere of the sun, and you tell me, "Well, you just said a fucking truck driver has to break down an engine. That must be flat Earth is retarded. You're retarded. None of you guys make any fucking sense."
But go ahead.
See, that's the type of bullshit. That's the type of bullshit that sends up
bullshit. Try another.
Okay, you can try to mock me if you want to, but it's not going to work. Okay.
So, Crit, it sounds like you're advocating for rote learning or rote memorization. That's exactly what you just
I'll tell you. Okay, listen. If you want to hear my answer, I'm asking for just some honesty. That's it. I'm not demanding that people.
Honesty.
That's it.
Here's some honesty for you. Yeah. That we can tell. We can break down the analysis.
I'll tell you what I mean
the makeup of the sun. Okay, and other sciences have been developed off of that technology.
So say it again, because I think the end broke off unless someone else heard it.
No, that was you. So we do know what things about the sun. We know the makeup of it because other technologies have been developed to do and doing this. So we know what.
First question is:
we know things about the sun.
Who the fuck is we?
Congratulations.
Yeah, who the fuck is we?
Science and humanity in general.
Okay, but I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to a group of people that aren't here, right?
Well, doesn't matter. We as in a population.
It's me and you, Patrick.
It's kind of cringe to call it we. It's just like a few.
Yeah, for me,
I don't care whether it's cringe.
Okay, for me, I'm not going to invoke a we unless I know for damn sure this group of people has elected me to speak on their behalf. Does that make sense? Can we reach some sort of unconditional acceptance on that?
You do you, and we as a population that make up the Earth.
You don't do shit.
We
so
know
don't
what
say
the
we. You don't do shit. You go to work.
You don't know what I do.
Well, I know you're not doing anything about that.
Bon Jovi, shut up.
How about you eat my nuts, too?
So you don't know anything about me or what I do.
No, but I know that you've actually layered on bullshit instead of actually talking from truth, logic, and reason.
That's your opinion. That's your opinion. And just like spectroscopy has been used in a court of law, and because it is developed an actual proven science, we can use spectroscopy to analyze the makeup and the elements of the sun. So we do know things about the sun. We know how it is. Yeah, we as in the world, the population.
Okay, how about this, right? You talk about a court of law, right? Using spectroscopy. Is it possible, I'm not asking you to dox yourself or expose your education level or anything else. Is it possible that you could be called an expert witness in a court of law to testify in spectroscopy?
What does that matter, whether I do or not?
Because if it's honesty, I'm looking for honesty here.
It's irrelevant to what I just said.
No, because you invoked a we.
Basis of science.
Okay, but you invoked. Okay, listen. You invoked a we.
I know about this science. I know about this science and how it works.
Okay, so it is possible that you would be called to testify. Just be honest with me, dude.
Irrelevant.
Okay, no, because you invoked the we.
Irrelevant.
I want to explore what you mean by
Yes,
we.
we as a population of humanity, dude.
No, but are you part
I'm
of
not
the
going to say it
we?
again.
Are you part of it? I'm not. I'll tell you straight up. If someone were to call me, some defense, hold on, listen. If a defense attorney or maybe even like a prosecutor said, hey, I need someone, an expert in spectroscopy to testify in court, would you be willing to do so? I would say, fuck no.
I don't do court. I don't do court. There you go.
Okay, so there,
You don't do
good.
spectroscopy either.
Yeah, so that's why I'm getting that. I just want honesty. That's it. Okay.
So what does that matter though? Whether he could be used as an expert. What does that matter?
It matters because he invoked a we. Okay, instead of a
he's just speaking about humanity. He's talking about the knowledge of humanity as a species, as Homo sapiens when he says we.
Yeah, that for me, that's batshit. I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm not going to invoke.
I don't give a fuck. You do you, dude. You said that
you do you
times.
also.
That's what he's doing.
And again, spectroscopy is a valid branch of science and a
Okay,
yeah,
I'm not. Listen, Patrick,
that has the ability.
Patrick, listen to me, please.
And has
Patrick,
no, dude.
Listen
guess
to me,
what?
please.
I'm going to finish what I was saying. Without
Okay,
you jumping
go
in.
ahead. Go ahead.
So it is a valid branch of science and discipline of science that analyzes things, and we can analyze the spectrum of the sun, the light that comes from the sun, and break it down to into its individual elements and spectra. We know what we do. We know the population of Earth and basic knowledge understands this and knows what the sun is made up of. So congratulations. We know something about the sun, therefore we can invoke it. Thank you.
Okay, for me now, right? I'm not going to invoke a we unless I know for damn sure I'm part of that group. The second part is I'm not talking about negating spectroscopy.
You're not allowed to use that word.
I agree with spectroscopy. Lots of it, okay? All of it. The thing is, though, if someone's going to call on me to defend spectroscopy in any avenue, court or otherwise, I'm going to say I only have a general working knowledge of this, and it's not something I would use as proof. If you want to, then you can't, okay? Not at all. You do you, okay? When it comes to my understanding,
you acknowledge spectroscopy as a thing, and that we can analyze the light from the sun. So cool.
No, I don't acknowledge that because you invoked a we again.
You just said
no. If you
just
okay,
said, you just
no,
said
you fucked up. You fucked up because
I got a great example for you. You said that you have your pre-law, right? You said that you're pre-law, right? So in a court pleading, when you're writing to the court, can you use quotes from experts in the field? Like can you quote books in your pleading as evidence in your court pleading?
Yeah, I think you got me fucked up. I didn't say I was a lawyer. I said I was like basically an over glorified, like clerk.
Pre-law clerk. Yeah. Jake, you've exposed him enough now. We can move on.
I never said I was a lawyer. You guys this was a part of the thing that seems fucked up.
You're the one that said that you were not a lawyer.
I never said I was a lawyer.
He said you were pre-law. Get it right.
Yeah, I said I took at the time, the college I went to had a degree in the legal process.
Yeah.
It was just basically a bunch of law classes that you could get a bachelor's degree in. It's virtually at the same time, it's like a philosophy degree that focused on law. How about that? Does that make sense now?
Permission to treat the witness as incompetent, Your Honor?
All right, that was uncalled for.
I need a ruling.
Uncalled for. Denied.
No, go ahead.
Denied.
If you want to treat me as competent, that's fine.
Overruled.
It negates anytime I want to.
You can tell I'm pre-law also.
We love pre-law.
Sustained.
See, this is the type of batshit stuff I talk about, because that right there doesn't build trust. Because I'm talking from a position of open and honesty.
Why are you trusting people on the internet?
You're not.
But in one sentence, you said, I agree with spectroscopy. I have a general knowledge of it. I accept all of it. And then the very next sentence, You denied fucking saying that, dude. You're not honest in any way, shape, or form.
Okay, maybe you heard something wrong. This is what I mean by that, okay? I understand the explanations. I've read the explanations.
Okay.
I'm able to process the arguments. It's not an argument I would stand on my own with.
Hey,
Okay.
Chris, do you think there's somebody in here that might be an expert in astrospectroscopy? Maybe.
Yeah, if they
Maybe.
are, I would then evaluate the trust
You would then
level.
trust them.
No, it depends. I would have to
good
look
old,
at
the good old appeal to authority.
no, because it would depend. Are they saying that at the end of the day, therefore the Earth is not flat, or therefore Crit is a retard? I would then follow their logic to its full conclusion, then evaluate whether it was bullshit or whether they were speaking. Some really powerful arguments have been presented from flat Earth, or I'm sorry, for globe Earth, and I've looked at them and I analyze them, and especially when I come back with some questions. And sometimes the questions are like, what the fuck? Is this guy serious? Like,
Okay. So if the person that's in here that might be an expert on spectroscopy told you that he knew something about spectroscopy and that's how we know what the sun is, would you believe him?
Yeah, remember that was my opening salvo
okay,
this morning, right?
so-
Or this afternoon.
Yeah. So there's a person in here that's, an expert in astrospectroscopy. So why don't you listen to him?
Hope it's not me.
Oh,
Is there someone?
damn it!
Oh, you done fucked up
I mean,
now. That's why I call
Jim-
bullshit.
You just blew the whole globe argument.
I'm pretty sure Andy was saying he wasn't talking about himself, Chronic. You're up, buddy.
Right there. That's what I'm talking about. The level of bullshit. Someone tells me like, "Hey, check this out."
There's just appeal to authority arguments that are really weird.
I mean, seriously, like Jim did different spectroscopy and burn tests in fucking like high school, I guess equivalent of high school.
You don't need to be an
have done these.
You don't need to be an expert to learn how to read and comprehend scientific papers and studies that are done.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I'm not going to claim it's my paper. Does that make sense?
Well,
No, nobody's claiming it's their paper.
They are.
No, they're not.
Okay, how about this?
And
My
and it's been
understanding is
explained to you that
Okay, listen,
a
I'll
great
tell
deal
you.
of population. No, you accuse me of him saying that like we or that I am claiming this, and I didn't. When I said we, I meant the population of Earth. A general population has a basic high school understanding of how spectroscopy has been used, and there's a lot more people that have college education and are professionals at this. That it is somebody that actually worked as a law clerk or whatever should have a basic understanding that this has been used in precedent and court decisions for years.
by you. That's what I guess I'm getting to.
Yeah, I took a class or two. That doesn't make me an expert, though.
Yeah.
Nobody claimed to be an expert.
Okay. So what I'm saying, I'm not claiming
sorry,
to be.
let me get one. Let me get one thing. You
One thing,
continue.
real quick. Just to
Okay,
respond.
Sure.
I'm not claiming to be an expert either, and I would not invoke myself as a we to call someone to try to roki-doke myself into a group of people that would also not consider me an expert.